Paul and I have Anita. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move on. Public comments, opportunity for a member of the public to speak about an item of business on the agenda. 2 minutes per person. None noted. Consent agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 and 5.3 and 5.3.7 for information. Would anybody like to speak to any of number five before we take it to a vote? Is there anything on that agenda you'd like to talk to? Go ahead, Chris.
Nothing in particular, but any of this correspondence, some of it's kind of interesting and almost warrants discussion, but do we count on staff to just deal with it? Is that what happened?
This is just left in for information, because if there's anything there that should have been dealt with, it should come before a council meeting.
Anything that requires action on behalf of the council is moved out of the consent agenda. If it requires significant discussion, or council thinks it requires significant discussion, they can move it out of the consent agenda.
So if you want to talk about something that's on that, say I would like to move 5.2.1 out of here and it comes back another day or today.
It can be intensive. That's generally when there's like significant discussion or it requires
I'm
action.
sure it's staff choice, not choice, but decision, that if it's really. I'm just wanting to, it goes through, you brought it up, I brought it up, it goes through quickly, and, you know, when I read through the agenda, there's some things that sort of perk my ears, and I do bring it up, some items, but I just want to know, generally speaking, staff decides whether it's relevant or not.
Usually that decision is made on the basis of if it requires action on the part of council. So if we receive correspondence where it's necessary for council to act on it, that's moved out of the consent agenda into the correspondence 8.0. But if it's something that we think that is just basically for information, so for example, the letter regarding the joint several liability, that's just informing council of the consultations that are going to be occurring, so that's basically why that's there. That's the...
Yeah, that was one that got me, I was wondering if we should be involved in that or not, but, okay.
Do you want to pull it out, Chris? You can pull it out and we can have a talk either now or another time.
There's not really much to talk about. Basically, the letter is just saying that the Ministry of the Attorney General is going to be holding consultations in regard to joint several liability. So basically, as that progresses, I would provide an update to council.
Okay, so this is the first notice of it, basically.
Yep, and that's one.
Very good, very good.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Go ahead.
I think to be clear though, council has the opportunity, or if a councilor, deputy reeve, anybody thinks it's important enough to talk about it, it is to be pulled and to talk about it. Like, we're not here to expect the staff to make our decision for us. And if we think it's important to talk about, it needs to be pulled and talked about. That's for everybody to, that's why we get the agenda on Friday, and that's why we review it over the weekend and get the information. This discussion about these types of things, if you think it's important for a follow-up to know whether we should be involved or not, then you have every right to pull it. And you have every right to ask those questions from a perspective of, I want to be involved, or council should be involved, and if the rest of the council thinks it's a good idea to be involved in it more than just in noting it, great. If not, then it goes. Everything is up for debate. It's not, we shouldn't be just here assuming that staff are making decisions for us, because we are responsible to make the decision if it's appropriate. They're making a decision based on what they think is important, what needs our decision or a decision right now. If it doesn't need a decision right now, they're assuming that we're okay to let it come back. When you want to talk about it now, everybody should be unaware that we can pull anything and talk about whatever, whenever we want.
Is that good for everybody? Good. Now do you want to pull up? No.
No, you need a
Did I call for mover second? I did not. Okay, Trevor. Paul, all in favor? Carries. Thank you very much. Public meetings and hearings and delegations. David D. Owens, and forgive me again if I've said that wrong, David.
Got it. You
What's
got it.
that?
You got it.
Oh, super. And of course, Mayor George Bridge is here. We're going to speak on Westerio Power first, if you would like to come up and do the presentation.
And we got our PowerPoint, did you have a PowerPoint?
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. It's great to see another council in action. You know, I didn't have to do anything there. We're listening to land division things are always fun. And you want to listen to all the, everybody and all the input, and it's amazing what we can come up with. And everyone can agree on something. So good to hear. So I'm just here, I made a commitment, I'm the chair of the Westerio Power as a shareholder, or main shareholder as well as yourself. And I made a commitment to Reeve and to the other mayors that I'd like to get around to all the councils this term if I can, and just go over what our partnership with Westerio is all about. And I made that commitment at the annual meeting, and this is our second visit. We did Brockton a little while ago, and we've got Carden booked in September, and I think a couple of them is on the way. So you're sort of a bit of a guinea pig. We're going to give you a bit of a overall, but the idea is if you have any other questions about Westerio, we're kind of giving an overview of Westerio. Councillors don't maybe see it as much as maybe the people that go to the AGM. So I know Trevor and every daily we're at the AGM, and I hope we give you some information there. But so we're going to just do that now, and take about 10 minutes, and then we can do some questions. One thing we want to talk about big time is that Westerio is a partner. And I know our new VP of operations have been around with quite a few. I don't know if they've been around your building department or to talk to CEO yet, because we've been to most of them, but he's now going and trying to get an idea of where your developments are going in the future and what hits the Westerio area. Because it's not easy sometimes just to all of a sudden wake up the next day and all of a sudden a big developer comes in, and we want to make sure the power's there for them. So we have to plan 2 or 3 years ahead as well as everybody else. So that's part of what we're going to talk a bit about today. So I'll, you got, flip it up. Who's flipping it? I don't have it. Clicker.
It's just on the laptop there.
Oh, it's on the laptop. Okay.
Just go ahead
Just
and
hit-
click.
Yep, just hit there.
Good. Okay. And David, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I'll do it. Thanks, George.
David, by the way, is our CEO, sorry, in the municipal world, I got Chief Executive Officer.
To Reeve Bailey and councillors, I'm actually feeling excited to be here. And as Joseph has indicated, one of our strategic direction is around engagement, engaging not only our customers, but engaging our municipalities and our shareholders. I think it's important that you know what your corporation is doing, and you're a shareholder of that corporation, how we engage in our customers, how our customers are satisfied with the service that we provide, and are you well informed because you have a strategic investment in this corporation. As our chairman said, Chairman George says, this is a long-term partnership, and we expect to be able to provide you clear transparency in our operations and help you understand what we're doing and how it benefits your community, but overall benefits all the shareholders. So I'll just go through, I prepared a few slides, just provide you a little bit of background, a little bit of information on Westerio, and just provide you an opportunity to ask questions around some of these topics I'll be touching, and any other questions that you may have. A few facts here, as we indicated, our customer base is around 23,600. We saw an increase of 0.7% in 2018, and we see that projecting, that projection will continue to grow over time, and with all the investments and development we're seeing happening right now in our service territory. One of the things that we pride on is our customer service, and I'll talk a little bit about that. 92% of our last survey of customers being satisfied with the level of service. We have around 39 employees working with us, a combination of management and operations staff. And in terms of our asset base, as you know, with any utility, most of your assets are around poles and wires and a few substations. So we do have around 10,600 poles, 27 substations, and conductors around 550 kilometers wide, and that's both overhead and underground. We talked a little bit about what we pride ourselves, what are we good at? And we know that over the last 2 years with a new board, new management, one of the things that the board have always said to us is we want our customers to be able to say that they're proud of the utility. And over the last 2 years, we've done a lot of work engaging our customers, engaging you, the shareholder, working closely with our municipalities, as George indicated. The VP of Operations have actually started some of that interaction and engagement with the planning department, so we better understand the developments that are happening in your municipality, so that we could be able to plan ahead and able to make the adjustments that we need to make in our budgets to accommodate some of these projects. Customers are saying that they're satisfied, 92% satisfaction. Other key areas of satisfaction is around reliability, and I'm sure you may be quite aware that in the winter your power don't go off that easily or quickly in the town of Wingham. Even though Hydro One is around, you may be out of power, but the very central part of Wingham pretty much stayed on. In terms of our commitment, Western does deliver on its commitment, and customers are saying yes. When we say we will do something, we do it, 88%. And we look at in terms of our quality of service and our product, how our customers view us in terms of our level of service and customer service department, and also the products that we provide to you, whether it's CDM programs, conservation programs. The customers saying that they're extremely satisfied and pleased with that product. 85% as you notice there. Now that is not to say that's where we want to be. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to see customer satisfaction and grow over time. And we have a next survey coming up this year, which will reflect whether or not we've moved away from this current benchmark or whether or not we've improved.
And just on that, the survey is done by a third party. It's not our survey, it's done by a third party, and it's compared to industry standards. So just to give you an idea, it's not something we just go out ourselves. It's a third party company does it professionally.
One that is very reputable and known in the industry very well. A little bit of history, some of you, maybe your new councillors don't know too much about West Area. I actually put this slide in here. So in 1999, when the government restructured the entire electricity market, encouraging consolidation and amalgamation, we saw a lot of the PUCs came together, especially in our service territory, about 8 municipalities saying, okay, let's form an organization to be more effective, customer cost might go down, more efficiency in terms of operating our utilities in our service territory. And we saw in 2000 the amalgamation of 8 municipalities, and I'll show you some of them on that list. In 2008, West Area was formed finally, and we amalgamated, it was the holding company and the service company. We amalgamated them all into one company called West Area Power, just so that we could only focus on the regulated side of our business and not on other areas that we didn't see value in. I put a vision here for you to see, because in 2018 we developed a strategic plan over the next 5 years. And our focus, what we realized is that we see a lot of changes in the industry in terms of customers' expectation, customers' demand, customers asking for more than what they were asking in the past in terms of reduction in cost of electricity, more reliable electricity, better value, better products, better customer service. So we focus on a vision that focused really on our customers, providing exceptional value for them. And again, not only our customers, but also our employees. How does our employees fit into that change that we've seen in the industry in terms of providing that customer service, that value, that exceptional value, and also maintaining the reliability that we see in our local community. So hence our vision is a community-owned electric utility delivering exceptional value, customer service, reliability, again emphasizing that to our local communities through the strength of our employees. We believe our employees are our greatest asset. They have the understanding, and why not use their creativity, their knowledge to help us become more innovative to provide that value that you see that the customers are demanding. So what does the corporate or the governance structure look like? And as you know, George is the chair. We have 9 directors, and then the makeup of 2 committees, the executive committee and the audit and risk committee. Again, 9 management staff. And the board, when we sat with the board in 2018 to develop this new strategic plan, the board focus was on making sure that when we deliver electricity, it's safe to the public and our staff, it's reliable, it's efficient, and we do that for engaging our customers, which is one of the things that we're doing. So this is the standard in which we will operate as a utility, which is our mission statement. Western is powering our community safely, reliably, efficiently, while engaging our customers and respecting the environment with accountability. So we say something, if we say that's how we will lead, we want to make sure that we practice it. And this is basically a demonstration of that, reaching out to our municipalities, reaching out to our councilors, our shareholders, reaching out to our customers and saying, this is how we want to operate our business. Making sure that we provide you safe electricity, reliable electricity efficiently, but also making sure that when we come to your community or to your property, we're not leaving an unsafe hazard there, or we're leaving any kind of debris that will impact our environment. We want to make sure that our staff understand the equipment that we use does have an environmental impact, whether it's the insulation that we use in our transformers. We want to make sure that if there's a spill, we can clean that up properly and leave the place, in a safe condition, and also the environment and the community that we serve. And I know most of our municipalities are focused on making sure they reduce on their carbon footprint. So we want to be part of that process and part of that strategy.
And by the way, I'm sorry Bart couldn't be with us tonight, he had another engagement. So Bart's your rep, and he's also a great asset to our audit committee because of his being a financial person. So he's been a great help for us, and he's been on the board for quite a few years.
Yep,
He's
that's
speaking of Bart Cameron.
I'm sorry, Bart, yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bart, I'm not sure, I think a lot of people here know Bart Cameron. I certainly do all my life,
Yeah.
and his parents before him. But, yeah, he's represented us for 2 or 3 terms now,
Three
isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
He's the CFO for Wakeman Telephone. So.
yeah,
And
he's
he's
very
the first
knowledgeable and he does a
municipal.
very good job.
That's correct. Very, very instrumental and very useful asset on our board, on the details of a lot of financial issues and the audits and all that stuff. So here are your shareholders. As you notice, you're in the top here, 7.71%. As an owner of the corporation, Western Power, and you see Fortis, which is an IPO company, a publicly traded utility, very good support there, and over you're in Kincardine, Etobicoke, Crofton, Charlotte Shores, and South Bruce. So here are your shareholders. And this is the community that we serve. As you notice, it's very spread out, not very contiguous in any way. Spread out all the way from north, you'll see Southampton, Port Elgin, all the way down to the south, Palmerston, all the way to the east, Kincardine, and Hanover, and over to the east and Kincardine to the west. So we service really approximately 480 square kilometers of area. Hydro One is in between, as you know, and we just service the very heavily dense communities. So here's a little bit of how we make our money. We distribute electricity to our customers. We regulate it by the regulator, and basically this is the pie chart just showing you what that consumption look like for maybe I'm just using this as an example of a customer that uses 1,000 kilowatt hours, roughly what the bill will be and how the bill is kind of shared amounts, all the different entities. And as you notice here, the distribution charges, which is in the blue, is really what we're focused on. Every other thing is a pass-through on the bill. It doesn't stay with us. It goes to the various entities, whether it's the regulator, Hydro One, IES, so and so. Now, that post pre the Fair Hydro plan, that was in 2017, I think, this is what your bill would look like. That has changed significantly. So you no longer have the debt retirement. EHSD now is rebate at 8%, as you know, and smart meter is no longer a bill.
Just on the bill, it's sort of similar to you have municipalities where we collect all the taxes, but we have to give it out to other people. So everybody looks at, whoever gives you the bill, everybody looks at that person as the one that charges the high rate. So that's a little bit, we have the same problem at Westeria as we do at the town, where, you know, well, you only keep so much of your tax base, and everybody thinks you got all their taxes, and wonder why they can't get everything done, right? So it's just, I just want to point that out. I think you understand that, being councilors.
Yeah. So this is the only other piece that we focus on, and everything else, we hand it over to the entities that are in it. And here's another, an example of a pie chart in terms of the distribution rate, which is a small, I think the 23, it's a little more than that right now, but this is how it's spread out. So you see the commodity, which is 57%, and the distribution charge is around 90%. We said a little more than that now, but the transmission, which is Hydro One, regulator 2%, and then we have the taxes on that. That is 8%. So where are we going in terms of the future? What is our long-term vision? Our long-term vision in terms of continuing to make sure that your corporation is successful and continue to provide value to you. We will continue to seek opportunities for growth, and that's one of the things. That's one of our strategic initiatives and priorities. Is okay, can we continue to grow organically by just subdivision customers, or can we look at opportunities outside of that? In terms of all the renewable energy projects we see coming out, we see new emerging technology, we see EV, electric vehicle cars, we see CDM programs, we see a lot of this stuff, new technologies are coming into our market space, and poles and wires may not be the future. And for us as utilities, what do? We continue to just be focused on the existing business model, or we do look at other models that will complement our business model and provide that value for you. So we're in the process of looking at what that growth looks like. Engaging with our customers, and that includes you, the developers, making sure there's the process for getting their projects implemented and also constructed and empowered is a lot smoother. Understanding what your needs are in terms of, as you see, development and beautifications of towns and expansion of roads. How do we get that process moving a lot quicker so that we would get some shovel in the ground a lot faster? Reducing operating costs is also a key priority for us. We want to look at how we do things, bringing new technologies so that we could bring down operating costs, become more efficient in terms of our processes, set benchmarks for us that meets in the industry standards, look at similar utilities, how they're performing, and can we perform better than how they're performing. Our financial performances, we want to make sure that we have a strong balance sheet every year, consistently, and that one that is stable, so that you, the shareholder, know that your investment in our corporation is sustainable over the long term. And lastly, look at funding for system upgrades. Reliability is one of our strengths, as I indicated. Those of you who were at our AGM meeting, I did highlight our reliability in terms of our duration of outages and our number of outages. So duration of outages is about 0.6 per customer, 0.6 hours per customer, and the frequency is about 0.2. So this is really incredible, reliable power that we provide to our customers. And why are we doing that? Because we're making the critical investments in the right places. And I'll close by just providing our contact information and where you can reach us. Our website again is www.westarea.com, and you'll find all our contact information there under the various departments, whether it's conservation, customer service, engineering, finance department, to help answer some of the questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
No, just flip that last one back up. Yeah, just on a couple of those items, improving financial performance. We worked really hard, and I give David and his crew a lot of credit. We took a lot of our own jobs back on. Previously, we didn't have a full staffing, and what was happening is lots of contractors would come to us and say, can you put the lines in the new subdivision or whatever? And we say, well, we're too busy, we're replacing poles or doing things maintenance-wise. By his ability and his staff reconfiguring how their jobs go, we got all those done anyways, that maintenance stuff, and we did most of our own contracts last year. So that brought in over $1 million worth of more money. As you know from the AGM, your performance, the actual dividend doubled. And we have a really solid projection going forward. So your treasurer can look at that and kind of feel comfortable where we're going. And if there's any concerns, we'll be letting your board person know if there's an opportunity that maybe we have, bad storms or whatever that cause some problems. But, and the other thing at the end, and I have a lot of big, and I know you do in Wingham, a lot of big factories, reliability is so important. The fact that they can't afford any kind of outage even for a few minutes, because a lot of them are on computers now and they have robots and they have to get them back up and running and all that other stuff. So we're really working towards maybe doing some shared stuff there where we might be able to go in and put some closed storage and different things that we can do with the new technology. So they wouldn't, even if we do have a power outage because of weather, they could automatically flip in. So those are all kind of neat things we're working on, so we put some money into the budget to be looking at some of that too, so I thought I'd mention a couple of those. Otherwise, we're open for questions.
Just before I throw it open, thank you very much, John. Just before we throw it open, as I said, Trevor, myself, and Dwayne were at the annual meeting. I think we brought a check home for $70,000, which is a beautiful revenue stream considering it is a different revenue stream. You keep hearing me talk about that. George, at the meeting there, we talked about the Hutton Heights project out here, and because we get dividend from this company, we should try to give them as much business as possible because we get something in return, where with Ontario Hydro, we just keep paying the bill. I thought I seen one of you, can anybody tell me what's going on with that? Maybe you gentlemen, or maybe Dwayne may want to talk to that?
I can, or
Yes, go ahead.
so there was some discussions in terms of Hutton Heights is within the Hydro One service area, and it's too far outside of the
For us to get.
Wyndham, for Westerio to take on.
Well, it's unfortunate.
It is, and you're not alone. We've got some in Saugeen Shores that we're running the same problems. Where we'd like to know, and if we know a little bit ahead, if it's not too far out, if it's really close, and, you know, I get a little frustrated as a councillor or the mayor to know we're running services to an operation, we can't run our own utility services, which would benefit from as well. But that's just the way the nature of the business was when we set up Hydro One and when we got set up. But we're all looking at expanding our boundaries a little bit because we're all, you know, we're not just Wingham anymore, we're Wingham, Teeswater, and the area, right? So why wouldn't we think that we could do more of that? So that's something we can do as politicians, to put more pressure on as we can when we get talking to some, and talk about how we can make this work too. So
Good.
something we're gonna work on.
Thank you very kindly. I'm going to throw it open to questions. We're going to start with Chris, for comments.
Put this delicately, if there was a Hydro One customer and we were able to get you out there, would that customer notice much of a difference in their bill?
Short answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Our distribution rates are a lot cheaper than that of Hydro. Because Hydro has to service a lot of rural areas. And our rates, if you look up here, our distribution rates for an average residential home, 750 kilowatt hour per hour, you're looking at $28 for distribution charges. Maybe Hydro One, I think somewhere in the 50-60 range, about twice that.
Did you come to Belgrade?
Well, and on that, we did a few swaps in Teeswater, did we not?
Yes.
Teeswater, we did some work, and that was one of the concerns. I think at a rate thing, I remember someone in Teeswater saying, I live across the road, I mean, I Hydro One, my neighbor pays this, so I knew that Dave was gonna answer that way, because, and she was at the rate thing saying, can we not fix that?
Kevin's going to, sorry. Kevin?
Thank you, great presentation. And through you. We've been amalgamated for almost 20 years now. Your power distribution only affects two councillors in this change.
Yeah, everybody else was Hydro One, I'm in Hydro One.
So, I'm just wondering why in that 20 years of amalgamation we haven't, looked at having the entire municipality under one rule.
And it's mostly, you're talking the rural area?
No, we have
Live.
Blythe, okay.
Blythe.
And all these walnuts, and then plus we were talking about.
Blythe, I don't know why Blythe wasn't, I'd have to look back to history there.
So I can give you some insight on that, gentlemen. So the history is, we decided to be partners, and at the time, Blythe decided to sell to Ontario One, and they got a cash
They
sale.
got a cash, that's right, that makes
It's
sense.
been used now.
That's the way you could have done it when you were back there. You could have gone out and sold out, because the reason you have shares is that your equipment, your buildings, everything else came in and that you got paid back in shares because you became a part of Westerio. And I think, the history, I've only been with Westerio about 8 years, but I think the history was, at one time there was 30 or 40 looking at doing it and it narrowed down to the 26 or whatever.
Yeah.
it just seemed to be.
Yeah, it's too bad, because now it makes more
Okay,
sense.
well, he was talking about, what about Belgrade?
Yeah.
What about the subdivision, and then the next village,
Yeah.
and the next village is blind, I mean.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what
Succession,
Yeah.
if
Three
all
has
of that
it,
can be
yeah.
connected.
Three has it, like,
And now that's all Hydro One. Yeah,
So
definitely.
just to follow up on what Kevin said, then, is it possible for you to approach Ontario Hydro and say that we have a show or hold here that they would like all their territory to be involved in,
if you wanted my, when the previous government decided to sell off a lot of Hydro One, it was, in our thought process, when you saw the map with us all there, we should have been allowed to buy everything in between everybody, right? That just made more sense. 'Cause, I mean, let's look at it from a customer standpoint, they see a Hydro One truck and a West Ontario truck, they're crossing each other, going up, down the road, it doesn't make sense. But they were looking for money, the previous government, not necessarily what made sense. And they sold it to pensions and to other people to get their cash. And that's my personal thing, that's my little rant. And we've talked and we worked hard at that, and I know David worked both sides because he was Hydro One at one time, so he has a good idea. And we get little wins every now and again, which makes sense, because there is a tribunal system if it goes to, am I right on this, David, it goes to a tribunal system where if you can say, if you want to expand a little bit, and you can say, we've got the power, like, a good example is our industrial park in Palmerston. We have 44 and 3 all down Minto Road, and this side of Minto is Hydro One. And so if a customer came in that needed a substation or a 44, they would probably not be able to do that. They'd have to come through us anyways, but we'd have to negotiate with them. But the customer is supposed to not have to pay extra because they would run a line from way over somewhere to bring it in, because when it's right there. So you go to a tribunal if you can't work it out yourselves. But there's that.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
So it's called a service amendment agreement.
And it's supposed to be the benefit of the customer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we would have to go to the OEB and say, here's a customer that's developing, they're right on the boundary of our service territory. But they are Hydro One, they in Hydro One territory. There's no wires there, but we are there. And we have to approach Hydro One first and say, okay, how can we best serve this customer? And we both will have to do something called an economic evaluation in the best interest of the customer, and then present it to the OEB. Now, Hydro One might not push it if it's going to cost them $1 million just for this one customer. They might say, just let it go. But if they see there is potential for expansion, so if, for example, if it's a small development and that's going to grow and grow and grow, they might give you a tough time, because if I bring that line in once, which is Hydro One, I could expand this in the next 10 years and have this whole area. So they might be a little difficult to allow you to have that one, but if it's just a one-off, sometimes they don't fight it, they just say to us, we both bring our cases forward, we sit down and they say, nah, this going to cost us too much, so you can go ahead and have discussion.
But we're not talking moving lines that are already.
No, we're not talking about moving lines, we're just talking about extension of lines.
Expansions. And then we'll look at angles when they're really close to the line, we'll look at it, so if we know you've got anything, David will sit down with you and try to figure out where potential is. It could be 3 years from now or whatever, but let's look at it now. Let's see if we can work it out, that we'll be taking it over, not them.
So I guess the answer to my question would be no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no for now.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, and I made this comment at the AGM, is that when you get into the OEB, it's, you can put it's supposed to be what's in the best interest of the customer. That's what the point of it is. However, their decision is final, and there's no appeal, and they don't have to justify their decision. They don't have to tell you why they're deciding one or the other. So the argument becomes is that, are they really doing what is in the best interest of the customer? And that is the concern from from the municipality of our demographic, because we have a long and short geographically how we are. Like two of our parts are Hydro One and one is West Area. So there was some decisions that were made a long time ago by other councillors that, in this day and age, if you had a crystal ball, would you have done the same decision? Maybe not. However, that was the decision was made. But any decision like we're going to talk about, like you're going to go into the OEB and help get West Area you are going up against an amalgamated company that is now got government-owned, government responsibility dealing with it. So are you going to potentially get a lucrative decision from the OEB? I don't see it. I don't see it anytime soon, especially when you've got an Ontario government that is as cash-strapped as they are, looking for every possible money that they can get. So I don't see it, but it's great that if we could get it, great. But I just don't see the OEB giving a favorable response to us, even if we wanted it.
Yeah, from a political standpoint, Trevor, you're right. I don't see us making this, opening this up, that we're gonna be able to get that area in between and all that stuff. I guess all we can look for is the little wins that we can make sense of. And if we can win a few of the little ones, by all means, let's try them. And then find out other ways that we may come up with more money, generate more money through some of these other things that are coming through with the storage and other things that we're exploring, and we're gonna try to see if there's another, because we're kind of limited how much growth we can have, because we're limited, same as you are, within the boundaries of your town, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look at efficiencies and doing whatever we're doing, and that's what we're trying to do, so.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Seeing none, George, don't go too far.
No, I know, I'm sticking around. I'll send David home.
Oh, thank you.
David, you're
Appreciate
off the
it,
hook.
John.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilor.
Thank you very much. 6.2 is Mayor George Bridge, Town of Minto.
But I'm bringing up somebody with me.
Well, introduce your,
Belinda Wick
To your presentation.
and Belinda Greenway, I should say, is our economic development powerhouse. She really makes everything happen. I'm just there for, I used to say window candy, but not anymore, I'm getting old and drawn out. No, but we're gonna try to give you a little update of where we are in the town of Minto and some of the developments that we did. I bumped into the Reed just as he was coming in, and I said I'm gonna take a walk downtown. I hadn't got out of a car in Lingham for a few years. I don't come this way much, so I took a walk downtown and just looked at some of your businesses, and there's some really booming ones, there's some really interesting ones. For your downtown, it's kind of a neat downtown, and I know you've got some signage up there for a program that you're working on as far as Win Your Spot. You have some interesting buildings that I think with our presentation, you'll see what we've done in Harrison and Palmerston, a little bit of some of that stuff. And the Reeve had asked me to come up and just kind of go through some of the things that we've done over the last probably, I can't believe I'll talk to you about 8 years or 9 years we started this. And we're seeing some wins and some good stuff happening, so we're just gonna spread what we've talked about, and then any questions, we'll talk about it. We have similar downtowns.
Thank you very much.
Belinda?
Sure,
And I'll
so
be with her, and we'll do
we're
kind
gonna
of a back and forth.
we've done this before.
We've done this before a few times.
So, yeah, we were asked to speak about economic development initiatives, and we have a lot, so this really isn't all of them, it's just some specific items that I thought might be of interest. For those who don't know much about Minto, similar to everyone else, we amalgamated in 1999. It's made up of Clifford, Harrison, Palmerston, and the rural Minto Township. Our population is approaching 9,000 people, and that's been an increase. It's been increasing, luckily. And our main industries are manufacturing and agriculture, similar to a lot of other communities. When I first started 14 years ago, where we were, because we think it's important to highlight for people that this economic development is a long-term game, and a lot of people are seeing the success we're having and thinking if they hire somebody, they're gonna have success like in a few years, and that doesn't happen. And we wanna make sure that we outline our whole story. So when I first started, we had an inactive Chamber of Commerce. They existed, but they really didn't do much. We had an economic development corporation made up of private individuals who council gave $25,000 to each year. They really didn't get much done. Downtowns were dying, like a lot of rural communities, and we had no staff. It was left to the CAO to try and do things, and they're busy people, and that doesn't happen either then. So this is what our downtown communities look like. When I first started, there was many empty buildings, not a lot of businesses happening. So one of the first things you need to do is get ready for business. So I was hired in 2005. One of my main roles was working with the Chamber of Commerce and helping to get them revitalized and doing something. We formed downtown revite committees in all of our downtowns. At the same time, the town was working on the Where Your Family Belongs branding, and we had a huge strategic plan exercise that's really led to a lot of the things as well. One of the first things in order to attract businesses is data collection. I know when I first started, people would come to us looking for information, I'd be scrambling to find it. So it's really hard to attract businesses to your community or build that case if you don't have the information they need to make that decision. We applied for a rural economic development grant, which was a big kickstart for us. We received over $400,000 over the course of 3 years.
That's the same program out now.
And it's out now again.
Yes. It's out now, by the way.
And Minor Capital is back in
Mhm.
the red grant, so that's been taken out for some time. But because we had done our work in terms of getting partners on board and data collection, that really helped us in getting those grant funds. We developed our first community improvement plan, which I think you guys are looking at. And then the streetscape stuff that we've done, and also the development of our industrial park guidebook. So a lot of people come with the same questions, instead of us like reinventing the wheel every time someone comes, we have a one-stop shop document that we provide people and meet with them one-on-one. So this is just a bunch of the data collection things that we had done. I'm not gonna go through this right now, but just wanna make a note that it's not just a one-time shot of getting data, it's continuously updating this. So as you can see, we've done multiple times these studies, and it's really helpful in terms of showing the difference. If we didn't do these, we wouldn't be able to compare year to year and council to see that there are things happening, because sometimes people forget where we were at the
And
start.
I just keep reminding Belinda that economic development isn't the same as a bridge or a road. It's hard. If you don't have data and you don't have the ability to go back to your citizens and say, this is what we've accomplished, and that's what we do with our mayor's breakfast. We talk about that would be the mayor's breakfast thing, is to get out there and let them know the successes we're having. Because you can point to a bridge or a road and say, your taxes paid for that. It's a little harder to point to economic development if you don't have statistics. So her job is very hard because it's soft. So for her to continue to get her paycheck and everything else, for me to be able to, and the council be able to support her, we need those facts. So that's why it's very important. And I think that we've developed a pretty good way of getting that back. And once you get people used to doing a survey and they see results coming back, they'll do it for you because they see there's something benefit to them as well.
So yeah, with the information that we collected, we developed investment attraction packages for each of our downtowns that are specific to the downtown. Like I said, we have our industrial piece as well. And it's full of this information. It's also available online. We have our website, we do all kinds of video profiles, and we have community ambassadors. So now it's like, okay, we have the information, now how do we get it out there?
And just on the videos, if you get a chance, go on the website. The videos are very, impactful. I think people, they're the actual people that have received some of the benefit, and they're so appreciative, and they talk about it, and you can see their businesses. And I think that's important to keep up creating that and doing that as much as possible. So again, delivering on the message that it's successful, you're getting something for your dollar that you're spending on your taxpayers' dollar.
And then in terms of like recruitment tools that we've used, so Pitch It is similar to Win This Space. We've done it for 8 years. It's a really low budget item. We put in about $2,500 from the municipality. $500 is the cash prize that we provide, and the other $2,000 is about advertising the program. But the rest of the prize money is put up by our businesses in our community that are giving cash or in-kind services, as well as various other partners. And this program was really developed because when we did our business retention expansion project, it was identified, we had all these resources, but people didn't know anything that was available. We didn't want to just attract new business, we wanted to help the ones we had expand. So that was the purpose of that. And it's really interesting to note that 5 out of 8 of the winners were existing businesses that were expanding. So they were either hiring people, they were expanding square footage, they were expanding product lines, all of that counts. So we've had some really good success stories out of this program. The ones pictured there is Shrimp Canada, which is opening, going to be building this fall actually on his shrimp facility. In the middle is Sean and Paige McDonald. Both are actually born and raised in Minto, went away to school and came back and opened up a chiropractic clinic, and Paige is a nutritionist. And then on this side is Michael Hendrick from the Old Post, and he is opening his second escape room in the Old Post office.
If everybody has a chance, been down through Harrison, that's one of our big success stories. The Old Post sat empty for many, many years, nobody wanted to invest in it, the person that had it didn't want to invest in it. It was an eyesore, people wanted me to buy it, the town, I said, it would cost us $500,000 to fix it up. And he went in, we gave him a few dollars on the CIP, he went in, and now it's totally full. We opened up another piece on the weekend, where he's got another little community kitchen, where people can actually go, it's a certified kitchen, so they can go and do some, they'll have a product they wanna make, or whatever, they can use that kitchen. And he's got another escape room going in the basement, so the whole thing's full. We have 7 people in Triton Engineering in there, and really a good win. One of the things when Belinda and I talked about this pitch it going back when they started, I guess
8 years ago.
8 years ago, was being an ex-banker, I understood that one of the problems with small business, when they're either starting or when they're trying to expand, banks tend to not look at well, this is what I'm going to do. They want to see it before they lend you money. So a lot of it was trying to help those small businesses create that opportunity to continue to grow, and we've seen some great successes on that.
So that's great that you're doing the Win the Space
Yes,
program.
I was just gonna say, that's just exactly what you're doing, sort of with your Win a Space, and I think that's a great opportunity.
Another tool that we did in 2010-11, and it's award-winning program with EDCO, is a program called Tour the Town Downtown Property Open House. It was really successful. Again, the project budget was only $2,000, which was mainly used for promoting. We had a Saturday from 10 till 2. All the properties downtown that were for sale or for rent and businesses that were for sale were open with people there to show them. And then we had a resource center with all our partners that had something to offer new businesses starting up in one spot. So they went around and could see that. And we ended up getting quite a few properties rented out through this. And that's why we won an award. And then it came to the point that the only properties we had left in our downtown were unusable properties.
We've got work orders on that. The guy won't fix them, so we can't put people in them.
Yeah, so this program then only ran for those 2 years, and that is why we invented the structural grant in our CIP, which I spoke to the Economic Development Committee about here. And yeah, that's why we ended up with that. And now this program, because we actually have buildings now recently, like this spring, that are ready to go, we'll be doing this program again either this fall or next spring. We do recruitment tours, and what this is taking our downtown Revite committee members, they're our ambassadors. We go to similar sized communities at least a half hour away and talk to businesses that might be looking at opening a second location. So we're not looking to steal any businesses from other communities, but just saying, hey, whatever you're looking for in a community, maybe we have that, and if you want to open a second location, how can we help you do that in our community? So that's what that is. We also are involved with Renew Northern Wellington. This is a not-for-profit corporation made up of Minto, Mapleton, and Wellington North. I'm just the president. And what this is all about, again, filling vacancies in your downtown. We work with property owners, and their property's vacant anyway, so what they do is there's an agreement between Renew and the property owner, and an agreement between the business and the Renew program, so there's no like lease direct between them. It's $100 a month, and it goes up. The rent, I guess, is $100 a month, and it goes up by $100 every month after that. And the business rent pays utilities to the property owner, so that's, you probably like, why would they want to do this? Because they're paying their utilities. Their store would be vacant otherwise. And if any time, like say I was in the space and somebody wanted to use it, like you wanted to come in and rent it, I would have to either pay up or find another spot through the Renew program, and he would come in. So really there's like no downfall. And then hopefully that business then becomes a permanent tenant. So the picture on the left actually is Body Adjust. He's an osteopath, and he started in our Renew program several years ago, and he's still operating. So after like 6 months, he was up to paying full rent, and he was out of the program. And while they're in the program, we also provide them all kinds of business support and coaching through Launch at Minto, which is, I'll talk about that later. We're not going to go into too much detail about the structural improvement grants, because I believe you're aware of that. But that's the building, the old post building that the mayor was speaking about, that's now full of businesses, which previously was not. This is another property in downtown Palmerston that was a horrible eyesore for many years, and is now home to 2 new businesses
And all the apartments.
and 7 apartments upstairs. This is another example, I guess, in Clifford of an industrial property that utilized this grant. So yeah, that's great.
And that business came from Winnipeg,
Mhm. Yeah,
it's,
this is their first Ontario location.
First Ontario location. They do 80% of the Florida seed for golf courses,
Yeah.
but they wanted something in the east, so.
And without that grant, we know for a fact that those people, all three of those examples would not have proceeded with the work that they did. I mentioned Launch It Minto a couple slides ago, so this is a partnership, it's a business resource center, a partnership with the Minto Chamber of Commerce. Back again, when we did our VRNE, we found that people had to travel an hour to get any sort of business support through our CFDCs or a small business center. So we developed this idea, it's an incubator space, so we have office space available for people to rent and move out into the community with, and this has worked several times. Triton Engineering is a good example, Innovative Print is an example, McLaughlin Financial. So we've had several people that started out here and have expanded out, and it filters out and trickles out, people move around, it's really paid off really well that way. We have board and meeting room spaces, we have Ask an Advisor program where different coaches come up and it's all free. And we also get funding for this, about $25,000 from the County of Wellington as well.
And just on that, it's so important, once you establish some small business and help them, it's tough for them to get that coaching and training that they need. And the mentorship program is an amazing piece too, where we have actually people that have been in business, or where they can go and mentor people and help them. If it's a financial thing, we have somebody for that. If it's more of an accounting thing, we have somebody for that. There are volunteers that will help you. Because if every one of those businesses succeed, just adds value to our community, right? And I mean, we can sit back and hope that all our businesses get put, like all our stores get done and everything else. But I think in today's world, as a council, you have to be more proactive. You have to be in there as best you can and help work with your people like your chamber and everybody else and try to do that. So this has been a big win. This is what originally I thought the launch was going to be more about the little spaces we're going to have, but we have a whole bunch. There's stats on it, but we have a lot of lunch and learns and all these things that we have like 20 or 30 people show up and we do all kinds of different things. And they learn and they're there. There's a lot of stuff they need.
And yeah, this is another program that initially we got RED funding for
Yeah.
2 years, and now we just celebrated our 5th year.
Yeah.
And it's another tool in our toolbox, and we're attracting businesses to say that we have this. People are quite surprised that a community of our size has this, and it's another thing that we can show that we're supporting. A big part of a lot of the economic development stuff we do is partnerships. And we couldn't do a lot of things we do without that, and these are just some of our main partners. We work a lot with the Business Center in Wellington, Innovation Guelph, our CFDC, the 3 downtown Rebuy committees, and the Chamber of Commerce, and obviously the County of Wellington Economic Development.
Innovation Guelph is a good example where once the business gets really big, MSW is working with them. They went from five employees to now they're over 50. And when they get too big for us and our little launch it, then you have that partnership in Innovation Guelph, and they can go down there and get bigger mentorship and bigger things that they need to do as far as funding and other things.
So then, like, in terms of, like, we've done some of these things and then where we are today. So our CIP program started in 2009. At the end of 2018, this was the return on the investment. And yeah, it's even higher than that now because we've done some really significant projects. In 2019, we're all out of our CIP money already because there's so many great things going on. Once people see stuff, it seems to start taking off. Those surveys that we did, like I said, we keep doing them, so you can see the vacancy rates have gone down. A lot of properties that are currently vacant are only vacant because they're being worked on, and they're finally going to be ready that we can start getting back to recruiting people for those spaces. We're really proud of our relationship with our business community, and you can see that from the results. That's what people say is an advantage of doing business in Minto, is the economic development support that they have, the support from the municipality, and how the municipality and chamber work so well together. We all have the same vision, and we're all going in the same direction. And then, like, we've also turned around the tide of people. People still shop outside the community. We're close to Listowel and Hanover, so people do leave to shop, but more people are shopping locally because there are more businesses there now. These are just some examples of survey results we do every year. This is not as up to date. I didn't get time to get last year's numbers for you, but in the downtown alone, in 7 years, 204 jobs have been created. And I think that's really interesting because people see the big factories open, and that's a big thing, like 50 employees or whatever, but they don't see all the little jobs that downtown retailers and service businesses create, so it's important that we keep toting that story. You can see the rest of the information there. These are just some of the grand openings in the last few years. We had 3 in one day last week. Sorry, this is a little harder to see, but I wanted to just briefly touch on some of the residential attraction efforts that we're doing. One is a Filipino project. It's, we know we need to attract newcomers to our community. We have identified the Filipino population as growing in Palmerston, so we've done some specialized work in helping them form an association. We've done targeted Google video campaigns in the GTA. We wrote advertorials for Filipino magazines. We've done a lot of work targeted to that area because we know it's more comfortable for those people to come if we already have Filipino people here. And just, just a couple weeks ago, we had a young Filipino family move from Mississauga. They're living in Palmerston and opened a new restaurant in Harrison.
Right.
And yeah, they just feel so welcomed and.
So they started, we helped them get their association running. They didn't have an association, so we worked with them with our immigration partners and got an association going. So I was just at their barbecue, potluck barbecue a couple weeks ago, and I said, how many families we have now? There's 50 families in the surrounding area. Some of them are still but in the area. And that's 50 families we had 30 the year before, so 20 more families. What I really like about it is they have skill sets that we need, and especially in the healthcare system and in manufacturing, and TG Minto is a big manufacturer, and MSW, and they need these people. So we're getting most of them migrating not from the Philippines directly, but from Toronto and Montreal, because they have cousins and everybody, and they'll say, you can actually have a house here. So if you make $20 an hour or whatever, you can buy a house. If they're sitting in Toronto or Montreal, they won't ever be able to do that. So they're great family people, and food is to die for. Tell them that.
Another one of our kind of things that we're doing, we do a lot of work around youth attraction and retention. This is one thing we started last year. It's part of our alumni attraction campaign is making sure that our students in our high school know that we value them. And so what we do with that is each year, the graduating class in May, we do a barbecue, partner with the Lions Club, and they do cooking for us, and then we have a nice little barbecue. We also have this little thing that's spread your wings, but remember your roots. So we want them to leave and go get educated and have their experiences, but we want them to know that we welcome them to come back and we're here to support them. And then at commencement in November, we give those students a gift, and then they plant a tree. They get this tree and they plant it in the park and have a photo, and they're recognized as that graduating class or whatever. And we have a whole other thing that's like actual campaign targeted to people that have moved away to come back.
And we have, if you check the videos on that, we have a lot of young people that come back into the community, and they move back in the 30s to have families, because they're finding that they can't be in Toronto and that. So you just want to make sure that they know, they're going to leave for a little while, but just make sure they'll come back. Now, we don't have a job for all of them here, but they'll leave and get their education, get their experience. If I look at my, the staff we have, I think what's the average age of the staff, or like, we have
Under
something,
40, I think,
under
yeah.
40, and a lot of them are graduates that have left and come back. Belinda is a good example of coming back. She wants her family to grow up in a small community, so she stays here. She could get a lot of money in the city if she wanted to go, but keep it in her head.
Yeah, so another piece of the residential attraction, like a lot of places, is the unemployment rate is so low and we need to attract more people. We last year did a realtors and developers breakfast and kind of got some information from those partners, and that resulted in a new initiative this year called Move to Minto. So we attended the Kitchener Home and Garden Show to promote our community, because we know based on our discussions with people where they're moving from. So we've done some targeted ads in those areas. We've done Google ad stuff, the videos, home shows, a big billboard in Tim Hortons drive-thru in Harrison. If you've been through there, we have a lot of people stopping there, so we thought we'd hit them there. But really just trying to increase awareness for what we have in our community in those areas. We also do a newcomers welcome reception in each of our communities for when people come. All of our businesses are there, we give them welcome bags and make sure they know what's available in the community. And then in terms of economic development, we've been working a lot with our developers in terms of not just getting them to come and develop here, but then once they're here, helping them promote their development. So we've been praised on that work, and they work in bigger centers and they haven't had the service that we've provided in our community. So that's something we've been doing a lot. There's kind of some photos from the Move to Minto campaign and just highlighting some of the things that are good for us. Investment traction on the business side of things, we have the last 3 years done a lot in terms of industrial and commercial business growth. The Palmerston Industrial Park is almost out of land, and Harrison only has about 2 acres left, so now we're in the situation where we need to service more land. And we really have a team approach here. When we meet with the developer, it's our public works, it's our building department, and myself, so it's kind of like all key people are at the table, and making sure that everyone knows upfront the process. So that's worked out really well in terms of attracting some key businesses, and it's looking like we might be a little cannabis cluster going in Palmerston. So
And just to give West Ontario a thing there, the last few we've had West Ontario there to give power support. So West Ontario sent their engineering people down, just so, and a good example, we had a new subdivision going in, and just from them being at that initial meeting when they were looking at where the roads would go, they could move a road rather than a pole that would have to be moved otherwise. And so that might have been a big problem down the road. They caught it on the drawing board, so rather than, so those are little things that if you can save the developer as much as you can on the fact that it's a one-stop shop type thing and work with them. And you know, it's like anything else, if you build anything, if you have built it to the plan that you put in place, less costly than putting any additional things when you have to change a wall or change something. So it always adds to the cost because you've got engineering and everything else. So try to get it right the first time. So we're trying to do that.
So yeah, this is just like a snapshot of some of the things we're doing. We would be here forever if we went through everything, but hopefully that addresses some of the things that you were looking at. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, and I'm gonna open it up to council for questions, comments. Go ahead, we'll start with that.
Thank you very much. Very impressed. Kudos to your staff and to your, everyone that's working on it. I just, a distinct difference between what we've been trying to do and what you've been not trying to do. More in it to win it, or this space was. I found that a lot of our applicants were coming in from, more from the social services side, through the Employment Canada side, more programs that they were using to get them off of assistance. But they were very grassroots, real start from scratch. I noticed you guys would get much more ability to attract businesses into those spaces. How did you go about attracting those, a business rather than just?
Well, maybe the Peel newcomers, we didn't talk about that.
Oh, there's so much to talk
I know.
about.
So one of the things we did a bus tour. So on, I'll let you explain it better because you'll talk to it.
So one of the things is we partner with 4 other municipalities on a project called Saugeen Connects. And we worked with the Peel Newcomer Center in Mississauga and did an investor tour where we brought 23 investors up to the community to show them some of the opportunities here. And that was one of the reasons why we attracted the Filipino gentleman that opened the restaurant. But how we advertise the Pitch It program is we do some radio advertising and some newsprint advertising, and we make sure through the chamber that our existing businesses know about the program. And because it's our 8th year, people are like expecting it and they're waiting for it. They know it's coming, so it's really just like has a reputation, and now people know to apply. And with the chamber, Launch at Minto, they had like a storefront. So a lot of people will come in that way when they're looking to start a business. We always, like that program is like a tool that we have. So we are always telling people about all the different things we have. And so they find out that way.
And we've identified, is it almost 40 home-based
Oh, yeah, we have a homepreneur network that's now over 50 people, so
Yeah, we're
people
50
that are
now.
doing home-based businesses.
And they may, some of them might end up going for the Square Fund.
Yes, we had several of those apply this year, of the homepreneur people that are looking to get out of their homes.
And what they have to do is, to go on the Pitch It program, they have to, we have a business coach. They have to actually do their business plan with the business coach before they can apply for the program. So they have to have a plan in place. So even if they, and the way we did it this year, we took most of the prize money, spread it out.
And
So
customize it.
customized it, so if we knew somebody needed a website, and we got a website for them, that somebody else had their website already with their business plan, because we've done the business plans with them all, then we'll be able to give them that piece of the prize table and somebody else something else. So you don't get something that's not worthwhile for you to have. But I think it's just being there to help support and try to, and those individuals will come to you. It doesn't happen overnight. We have, Summer is a great person, we share jointly with the chamber, so they pay half her salary, we pay the other half her salary. So Belinda has 2.5 people in her department. But she does a lot, and they do a lot. And we're so excited with the downtown revites, that came when our money ran out from the RED program, we could put money into the downtown groups. But we had Roger Brooks, and we had
It's a group called Your Town Rising. So if you're looking at like getting your downtown VIAs or whatever really pumped up, I would highly recommend these people. They're not that expensive, and the enthusiasm in Hairston and Palmerston has been unreal, and the businesses have really stepped up and are doing some great initiatives in the last month.
I just said to them the other day when we had a little something, I said, it's great Belinda can step back now because they're so excited. They're going so fast we can't catch up to them. All the things they're doing, they put new park benches out and all this. They just went out and got people to donate brand new lights on the all little trees that have 14 different, they could change colors 14 different ways just by your phone.
140 different.
140 different ways, I don't know. And that's all, and they just went out to the merchants and said, here, give us the money. So no money came from the town other than we got the people in to get them excited. And like, you only win if you get everybody in with you, right? That's the only way you win. But it takes time and it takes an effort. And it takes people in, like Belinda's situation, doing a lot of that, what we call the mundane things, by doing all these groups that we have that she looks after, Cultural Roundtable and all the other things. It's allowing us to do the administration side that most volunteers would want to do. But if you can get them enthused on the other side, you can't buy that kind of enthusiasm. We couldn't afford their budget for what they do. But you need that, right? You need that consistency, because you have a lot of groups that start off and they do really good for a little while, and they burn out, right? And so you need that consistency of administration, which we handle, but they handle all the other stuff, right? That would be one of those.
Yep.
Second question. The outreach to the field and to the Filipino community, some of your outreach into Mississauga, was that done through the municipality, or was that done through the economic development committee, or?
Like for us, so we are we're partners, so our CFPC is in Newstead, Visagi Economic Development Corporation, there's them.
You have one here.
Season Seaford,
Yep.
the Huron
Seaport,
CFPC.
yeah.
So yeah, so ours is in Newstead, Saugeen, and then there's West Gray, Brockton, Hanover, Wellington North, and Minto. So there's 5 municipalities in them. But I had to contact the Peel Newcomer Center and brought him into the group.
And
So
they-
now we have a relationship with them, and
They love this because the people have $250,000, they can't do a business in Mississauga or Toronto. And they have $250,000 to spend to do a business, but they can't do it there. So to bring them here, and once they get over the shock of what, we're a small town and we get all these, first of all, they don't have a car, maybe even, but
so yeah, we reached out to the Peel Newcomer Center and built that relationship with them. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, my comment is that, and I really don't have a question, I think the measurables that you presented tonight speak for themselves. What
So
Clifford
important.
and Minto and Palmerston, Harrison have done in the last 10 years has surpassed anything that anybody could ever expect in a 10-year period for what has been done. A lot of the information though, what I've got out of this is numbers allows you to develop those relationships. those measurables. Here's what we've done with this money, here's what we're gonna do with more if we can get more partnerships. We need to have more, and this is my overall comment, we need more partnerships within our own economic development groups, Huron County, you know, HDC, like, the list goes on and on, you can put 50,
Yeah.
but we all have to start talking more, our BIAs, for example, need to start talking with our economic development boards. Like, we got all these people with great ideas, but nobody's taken the lead to put them all on the table and figure out what the performance measures goals need to be in place so that we can start to communicate to the public that says, here's what we've done, here's the measurables that we've got, and here's the successes there is gonna be failures, let's be clear,
Oh, yeah.
there's gonna be failures.
Yeah.
You didn't have any failures on those slides, but
No.
you don't talk about those.
No, but, you know, we
But
did
there
have
was
failures.
failures.
Yeah.
So, you know, we need to get a better sense from that about what are our measurables and how do we talk about what those measurables are? So that the public understands, you know, you spend $250,000 on economic development, what's the measurable that talks to that? And that's the thing, that's the hard, like Mayor Bridge said, that's the hard number to figure out. But we need to figure out and put something to it so that somebody can honestly understand what you've invested your time, especially these economic development people, business owners and stuff that are sitting down in that. That's their own time, they're getting paid for that. So we need to understand that's the type of stuff we need to invest.
And go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and that's one of the key things why I said about data collection right away, because you need to have a benchmark so you know what you're comparing to, right? And a lot of people don't do that, so then they don't have that, as you're going along, what are you comparing to, right? And that's exactly why we do this, we do it for Launch It, we do it for all of our projects, so people can see, oh, there's value in investing in this.
And our economic development committee we have every sector represented in our economic development committee. But they basically are there to give us advice. They're not asked to do a lot of heavy lifting.
No.
From anything. They're there because they're an expert in their field. We have a farm group in there, we have manufacturing. So we have TG Minto. TG Minto's 1,000 employees. Their general manager sits on our table because they want to know I want to know what's going on there, and they want to know what's going on with us because it's so important. One of the big things we come out of there is to attract enough workers for them, because their problem is getting workers, is we need rental accommodations, we need attainable housing, we all are into that right now. We're working in Wellington County on some projects there. But you have to look outside the box and try to go, and you're right on, you have to build those relationships, you gotta build the partnerships. And working alone in silos anymore won't cut it. Like a BIA, I remember a BIA when I was at the bank for many years. I was in Hanover and I was in Elmira. You know, all we did was put parking lots up, whatever. We did real good in Hanover. There were a lot of parking lots downtown. Every time a house came up for sale, we tore it down, put a parking lot behind the stores. But at the end of the day, it's changed. The world's changed now. We have to get more interactive with all those groups. So I know you have county economic development, I believe.
Yeah.
And we're working the Western Wardens on a county project. We've got a county, or the Western Wardens economic development person for some of the bigger things we need for housing, workforce, to go to the government and ask for a little bit more money. But I'll tell you, Trevor, or somebody hit it nail on the head here, this government doesn't have a lot of money. So what you really want to prove to them is that they'll give you a little bit of seed money if you're gonna work and make it happen for them, because at the end of the day, municipalities are where it's gonna happen. I mean, they can give you $1 million, but you have to have you have to be able to deliver it to something, you have to make it work, right? And you're the people around this table that are make it work, and your staff, right? But you have to give your staff that ability to do that. But we'll work with you anytime, like we've done
We're
this.
very passionate about it.
Yeah,
so
we've
you
done
don't
this.
cut us off soon.
Yeah, you cut us off. We've been working at this for other municipalities, some of them have done, Ray Highlands, they've done some work, and they've all started off. But it takes time too, just remember it takes time. You got 3 years left in your mandate. You know, yeah,
You know,
but, yeah.
any other questions from the council? George, just like to ask, you said you work with 3 or 4 other communities. Do you have cross-border agreements, or you just simply work to draw no cross-border agreements at all?
We just work with them. We
Just with them,
partner
yeah,
with them.
okay.
Yep,
Yep.
it's pretty informal.
Yeah, good show, good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a little bit to add to the table, like maybe somebody has an expert in a certain area, and if you can draw on it, rather than everybody have to have one, right?
And
Yeah,
a lot of the grant money now is
Mhm.
all about tied to regional stuff and partnering with other communities. And
You'll get the grant if you do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Saugeen Connects project was like a no-brainer, they said, because it was cross-county. There's Bruce Gray, Wellington, 5
And we've
different
done-
municipalities.
We've done this at Brockton, we've done this at Hanover, and like, so
So it's everyone like throws in their $5,000 and
it makes a big difference.
it gives you a bigger pot to work.
Well, and it brings your people to the table, it brings staff to the table, so it's not all one staff person that have to do it, because we're all limited in how much staff we have too.
Yeah.
And so it allows everybody to share the workload there too.
And the recognition that if it's good for, like, Wellington North might get an investor out of this tour that we did, but that will benefit us too. So kind of the recognition that we're all in it together.
You definitely have the passion. You both definitely have the passion. And you've done really well, and I really appreciate you coming. I look forward to you coming, George. Because again, as I told you earlier in the day, I've watched the development in Harrison, and I've watched the development in Palmerston especially, and it's just amazing. When I sat on council last time, as I said, I did a presentation to all the council to show them what was happening in these towns. We did, Connie Goodall, who was the economic development person at the time, we did a presentation to my council showing what was going on around and how we should take advantage of what they're doing. And my wife loves that little hiding place on the main street of Harrison too. She's been to that.
Oh, the escape room.
The escape
Oh,
room,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it's called,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We gotta go there.
You get to ring the bell if you make it through, on the bell.
Well, we sure appreciate you folks coming out. We will be calling upon you because we have a very active council here and we want to move things forward. And we are pushing at a fantastic rate ourselves on a bunch of different items. So we will be maybe leaning on you guys a bit for information. And Laura's been a great part of what we're doing too. She's with the county and she's been to every meeting, and we're going to talk about some further developments that are happening kind of along the
Yeah,
lines.
use
of
the
what you
county
folks
as
are
much as
doing.
you can. The county's been very, I started economic development at the county when I was warden, and now it's up and running, and that really helps too, because it brings more money into the play.
Yeah.
And again, we can do the grassroots stuff, we need the county to do the bigger picture items,
Yeah,
and that's so important, so they can work really well together.
yeah. Well, I want to thank you folks very much for
Thank you.
making the trip.
Sorry we're a little late.
Yes.
Oh, we loved it. I didn't hear
Have
a
a good
complaint.
rest of the meeting.
Didn't hear a complaint. Except I don't know where we are.
Anybody want to email?
Yeah, I am, Paul is,
Okay, well, maybe get a chance to talk down there.
and Rick is.
Okay, good.
Yep, see you down there.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Oh, okay. Temporary zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z03-19. Location, section 14, south part of lot 33, concession 13, part north, part lot 33 and 34, part road allowance, East Wall and Oshward, Township of North Huron. Application owners, Tim Wellstead and Brian and Brenda Wellstead. 6.3.1, purpose of the meeting. The purpose of this public meeting is for the council of the Township of North Huron to consult with the public on the temporary zoning bylaw amendment identified above. 6.3.2, requirement of the public meeting. This public meeting is required to be held pursuant to the Planning Act ROS 1990 as amended, which requires the council shall hold at least one public meeting, and all the property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the area affected shall be given notice of the meeting by the clerk of the municipality. Pursuant to the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended, council shall provide to such boards, commissions, authorities, and other agencies of council considers may have an interest in the proposed sufficient information in the proposed sufficient information to enable them to understand in it generally. 6. Oh, Laura, thank you.
Okay.
So good evening again, council. So this is for a zoning amendment application, file Z03-19. And it's for a temporary use bylaw amendment from the owners and applicants Brian and Brenda Wellstead, and Tim Wellstead is the applicant. It's for a property at 86-457 Norman Line in East Wabanach. And the purpose for this zoning amendment is to permit a temporary secondary dwelling unit, so in this case a mobile home, on the farm to be used by farm family for a maximum period of 20 years, and also recognize the Garden Suite's MDS deficiency from the nearest neighboring farm. So here's the subject property itself. So to explain a bit about what a garden suite is, in this report, in my report that I've sent to council and in this presentation, I use the terms temporary dwelling unit and garden suite interchangeably. Basically what it is defined by the Planning Act is a one-unit detached residential suite with a kitchen and bathroom facilities that is secondary to an existing structure, an existing residence structure, and is designed to be portable. So at the county, we've determined that to mean a mobile home or a modular home, as they can both be easily picked up and moved on or off a property versus a stick-built house. So it is defined that way in the Planning Act. It also says that it can be permitted and defined as a temporary use up to 20 years, and that basically it's designed to be added to an existing farm and allow for either farm family to reside on the property, and either in some cases it's children who are assisting with farm work that are living in it. In some cases, children are moving to the house, and the parents who were working the farm before move into the mobile home or the temporary dwelling unit, or it's farm laborers as well. So it's designed for either seasonal use or people who are living on the farm year-round, so that they have somewhere outside of the main residence to live and be close to the farm at which they're working. So the 20 years is basically so that it is considered almost a generation, and that it's and after that, after the 20 years, it can come back for renewal, which again would have a public meeting such as this tonight, and for council's consideration. At the end of the 20 years, the bylaw would expire, and it is the owner's responsibility to move that dwelling unit off of the property. This is done through an agreement that's signed between North Huron, the Reeve and the Clerk would sign it, and the owner of the property, acknowledging that it is temporary in nature, it's not a permanent structure, and also who would be residing in it during the 20-year period. And that's added to the property and registered on title. So there is policies in the official plan that permit this and recognize it as the ability to have a second residence on a farm in addition to the existing house. So the subject property here is designated agriculture, natural environment limited protection, and natural environment full protection in the official plan. And the policies for that recognize the residence as part of the farm would be secondary to the farm and have criteria in the policies for it. So before I review those, I'll show you, this is a close-up on the existing structure, so you can see the barn there and the existing residence. The blue square is approximately where the proposed mobile home would be located on the farm. It would utilize the existing driveway and connect into a water line that runs from the existing house to the barn. So the criteria and policies in the North Huron official plan are that the temporary secondary dwelling unit is to be removed once the need for it is no longer there. As I mentioned, this would be accomplished through an agreement between North Huron and the owners, and then as well that's encouraged and by the policies in the Planning Act as well. The second criteria is that the dwelling unit meets the minimum distance separation from neighboring farms. An amendment also to this bylaw that council will be recognizing tonight is that the existing house is deficient from the neighboring barn, and the mobile home would also be deficient. So I do have a picture here. So this is the site plan that you can see that was submitted, showing where the mobile home would be located in proximity to the existing structures. And this is standing on the driveway, looking towards the existing house, and you can see the tree line there. On the other side of the tree line here, that's the approximate location of where the dwelling unit would be located. So it does have privacy from the existing residents, but is still clustered with the buildings that are on the property and able to tie into existing services, which is an important component, especially on a farm that has sufficient acreage. The residences are supposed to be located together, and that decreases the pressure and likelihood for one to be asked to be severed off in the future. So you can see here with regards to MPS, this is the neighboring barn to the south, no, sorry, to the east. And the existing residence that's on there would be deficient in the minimum distance separation. So currently that barn is empty of livestock, and it does have the ability now to be filled because it is capable of holding livestock, so livestock could be put in it tomorrow should the owners wish. But if that was torn down and rebuilt to a modern barn with the same amount of capacity as projected by the existing barn, they wouldn't meet the MDS to the current house that's on the property, nor where the mobile home is located. So the mobile home does not have any significant impact on the future ability of the barn that doesn't already exist by the house that's there. So the bylaw would recognize that the mobile home is not meeting the MDS for only the 20-year period. After that, it wouldn't be a factor, and it would just be measured to the existing house. And as I mentioned, another criteria is that the dwelling unit is situated with the existing cluster building, have adequate sewage treatment, and use the existing driveway for access, which is all proposed. The driveway would come off of the existing entrance onto Norman Line with no new entrances proposed, and there is sufficient room at the front for a septic system for the mobile home. So it is supportive of the goals for agricultural lands and encouraging flexibility in different scales of farming, as well as keeping residences on farms that are in the North Huron official plan. The zoning for the property is AG1, General Agriculture, Natural Environment Limited Protection, NE2, and Natural Environment Full Protection, NE1. So there is a section in the North Huron zoning bylaw that references garden suites, and that as a condition to passing the bylaw, the council may require the owner or other person who is on title for the farm to enter into an agreement that names the person who will be residing in the residence, and an acknowledgement that it is temporary and at the owner's expense to install and remove. So there were no comments received from the public during the commenting period. The comments received from Maitland Valley Conservation Authority did recognize that the subject property did have regulated lands, including river valley, floodplain, and wetlands, but the proposed development is situated with the existing buildings and outside of any of their hazard or regulated lands, so they have no concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions that council has before making the motion.
Any questions? Comments? Go ahead, Chris.
I always thought they were, through you, Reeve, I always thought they were granny suites back then.
Yeah, that's another term for it.
Yeah. That's where you go, Ryan, is it?
I'm being retired now.
So we have, seeing no other questions or comments, I have, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, through you, Reeve, I'm just curious, for the taxation of this, for our infrastructure, the cost of policing, things like that, does that have a bearing on our, how the cost is distributed amongst everybody? Like,
I'm going to defer that to Dawn, who just do that.
Sorry.
A question about how the policing cost is distributed when there's a second unit added to a property.
So MPAC looks after the household count, which is where in turn generates the information for policing to charge us based on households. But any, I'm assuming that this would meet the criteria to be actually assessed like another, like a regular home. So the assessment would be, they would be billed as a tax bill for the second unit as well, is how I would understand it. I haven't seen one of these for a while, but they're going to have to get a building permit and everything, would they not, Laura?
Yes.
Yes. And so it would be the same sort of thing, like it's a full, it would be at least like a trailer or a fully functioning unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, independent and with its own services. The water's connected, but it would have a separate septic.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, gonna ask for comments from the applicant or his agent. Did you want to speak to it at all, or?
Oh, it seems pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, okay. I'm with you on that one. So 6.3.6, comments from others. If any person or public body does not make, Oh, I don't have to know. So what do we go to? Laura, can I have a recommendation, please?
Yes, I'm recommending approval, and there is revised wording to the bylaw before council tonight, in when you get to the bylaw section of the agenda. There is a second motion, it references section 3417 of the Planning Act. Initially, when this was circulated, they didn't recognize that there was deficiency with the MDS, so that was added into council's bylaw tonight. Given that there is not, it's not imposing a significant impact on the barn that's there, because as I mentioned, it could have livestock put in, it's just affecting its ability to, not just the mobile home, but the existing house, its ability to be reconstructed. It was deemed by myself minor, and if council's in agreement, then they would pass the section 3417 motion, which means that they're able to pass the bylaw tonight without recirculating the bylaw with that additional line in it.
Thank you. Whereas the Council of Corporation Township of North Huron has held a public meeting pursuant to section 34/12, the section 39 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw. And whereas certain changes have been made to the proposed bylaw after holding the public meeting, now therefore the Council of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron hereby resolved that in pursuant of section 34/17 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, no further notice to be given in respect to the proposed bylaw. And that the Council of Township of North Huron, okay, so I will ask for a motion for that. Trevor, Anita, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
We've noticed in the past that the MDS can be changed. So when another residence as this comes in, does it cement it more on that barn there? That it can't be, like if they wanted to rebuild, do they have to go full distance? Or can they apply for a minor on it?
They would have the right to apply for a minor
They
variance.
would still,
Yeah.
okay.
And that would be given the same consideration as any application. We would look at the surrounding residential buildings, the impact that's considered on them, versus the barn, and it would depend on the style, size of the barn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trev?
Laura, when you talk about the building of that barn, if it was to be destroyed and had to be rebuilt, you're talking about the neighboring barn.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So, I guess my question is, from a public notice perspective, has that part, like that barn, has the owner of that barn been advised of that if that barn was to be destroyed, that they would not be able to be permitted to build it on the same place without a variance request or whatever? Have they been advised of that?
Not through this application, but that would require whether this application was here tonight or not because of the existing house.
The existing house on
On the
his own
subject property.
on the subject
On
property?
the subject property, the Wellstead property already has a house too close, and this is just measuring for swine. It
Right.
varies obviously with chicken
Okay.
and cattle, but the existing house on the Wellstead property, should the barn with the same number of nutrient units for swine specifically was the high calculation, be proposed for that, they wouldn't be able to rebuild today even without a mobile home on there. Without looking for an MPS or moving the barn back.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. Passes. Next one is that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby approve the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment file number Z03-19, South Part Lot 33, Concession 14, Part North Part Lot 33 and 34, Concession 13, Part Road Concession 14, Part North Part Lot 33 and 34, Concession 13, and Part Road Allowance, East Wallanosh Ward, 86457 Norman Line, Township of North Huron. Owner applicant Brian and Brenda Wellstead and Tim Wellstead. Do I have a Trevor moves, seconder will be Chris. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor, it passes. Thank you. So now we have the recommendation from the chart to do with,
So to summarize, there were no comments received from members of the public, and the agency comments from the Conservation Authority were supportive or had no objections.
So in saying that, then you're looking at 2A and you're looking at 3B. So
Do I-
no comments and the agency supported the application.
do I have a mover? It is Anita. Do I have a seconder? It is Rick. Questions or comments? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna go down to, number 7 now, 7.1, the clerk's department. 7.1.1 minor variance. Do you want to talk to that thing?
This is just accepting the motions of what came out of the community adjustment.
I'll move it.
Okay, Trevor moves it, seconder, Anita again, all in favor, carries. Go ahead, Trev.
Reeve, I'll defer 7.1.2 because it was deferred in the community adjustments. So I'll move that.
Okay, seconder, Paul, all in favor, carries. Okay. Let's move on to 7.1.3. Evaluation of strategic planning proposals. The Council Township of North Yarra hereby received a report from the clerk dated August 12, 2019 regarding the evaluation of strategic planning proposals. And further, the council authorized the allocation of $6,000 of the modernization fund to help pay for the strategic plan exercise. And further, that the council award the strategic plan exercises to LURA Consulting. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, seconder. I have Rick. Questions or comments before I call the vote? So this is to do with the plan that we talked about to move us ahead for the next 4 years, so we can all be. Oh, yes. Rick, speak to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. So at the June 17th meeting, council passed a motion that authorized the CAO to solicit various strategic planning consultants who would be capable of facilitating a strategic planning exercise, and directed staff to bring a report back that evaluated these proposals. So basically that's the purpose of the report that you guys saw. And so, as was shown in the evaluation chart that was attached with the report, both Lura Consulting and Satori Consulting had very similar proposals, where the proposal received from Gordon A. McIntosh had a structure that was more focused on discussion and facilitation as opposed to the development of an actual working strategic plan itself. And importantly, the differences between Satori Consulting and Lura Consulting, there wasn't many, but what staff found in the evaluation was that Lura Consulting had worked with municipalities before, such as they were in developing the strategic plan for Huron-Kinloss and Brockton, and they worked on the Huron County Sustainability Plan, where Satori Consulting, their main client base was financial institutions and like larger municipalities, like their main municipality was like the region of Peel or something along those lines. So staff found it prudent that Lura Consulting would be more of an appropriate choice, and staff reached out to the Huron-Kinloss CAO to get their opinions on their experience with Lura Consulting, and they were positive as well. So then, as for the financial impact piece that was in the report, during the budgeting process, $10,000 was allocated to strategic plan, but at the June 17th meeting, council indicated the importance of including a public consultation component. So then the proposals that were solicited by the CAO all incorporated that public consultation component, and as was in the report, no matter which consulting firm was chosen, and additional funds would be necessary. So in the report, it's recommended that $6,000 of the modernization funds be be distributed to this project, considering the fact that the modernization funds are designed to help small rural municipalities plan, modernize, and improve in the way they provide their services to their communities, so, which would make the use of those funds prudent for the strategic plan.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Passes. Thank you. We have nothing on finance tonight. 7.3 is recreation, concession booth services. We're gonna have Vicki speak to this first. Or do you want me to- Go ahead, Vicki.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report in front of you basically provides some background on the concession booth, or the history on the concession booth services in terms of what the decision was of the last council. So basically, in 2018, the provision of concession booth services at the Blythe District Community Center and the North Huron West Cass Community Complex was discontinued as a cost savings measure. As part of that decision, council directed staff to prepare and release an RFP for the purpose of offering the opportunity of providing concession booth services by a third party, whether it be an individual, a business, or a community group. There were no proposals received, so as a result, concession booths at both complexes were closed over the 2018-19 ice season. So, over the season, we didn't really receive a lot of comments from the general public, comments or complaints from the general public. The concerns that came forward were from event organizers. So whether it was, for tournaments, or anything like that, where a large number of people were coming in. So the event organizers were concerned that there were no food services available, particularly in Blythe. I think with Wingham here, it's a little bit more, you have more fast food options with pizza and Tim Hortons right there, and things that's very visible, but particularly in Blythe, that's where we heard some feedback and things. So as a result, there's been discussion out in the community, and there appears to be a renewed interest in by third parties to operate the booth. And as such, staff's just requesting permission really to be able to go and offer an RFP up to the community to see what kind of interest there is. The submissions would be evaluated and brought back to council for consideration in September. If there were no submissions, council may wish to consider permanently closing the concession booth and possibly repurposing it. It's really interesting, for a long time, a lot of arenas had concession booths, but the new trend is that these newer facilities, they're not. Because what's being done in the community is that concession booths do not make money, and a lot of times they cost the municipality to run them. So, something to consider. Based on the timeline, it will be involved with the release of an RFP. Booth services by a third party would not be available for the provision of the booths, say for the Threshers reunion, which is at the beginning of September. Staff are currently exploring an in-house staffing option to provide that service, but last year there were no complaints or anything from Threshers. But we do know that it's something that those attending the event would benefit from.
I'm going to read the motion before I ask for questions or comments. The Council Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to issue the request for proposal for the operation of the food booths at the Blythe and District Community Center and the North Huron West Cass Community Complex. Do I have a mover?
I'll move the discussion.
Do I have a second? Rick? Okay, let's have that discussion. Go ahead, Travis.
Vicki, when putting this proposal out there, and when I hear a request for proposal, are we indicating to the requestees who are requesting that they're specifically only able to operate at a certain time? So, like, I guess what I'm hearing is that, you know, community events, large-scale community events is a key indicator of this, but are we limiting it to that? And I guess my question is, if it's open and somebody wants to run their business out of that facility, would we be harming them in us dictating when they could operate? If the facility's open, the facility's open and they should be able to operate their business. That's my question is, are we sending out this proposal that is limiting what they can operate?
We would be using the same proposal that was offered last year, 2018. It specified the specific time, like the minimal time periods that would be required to operate. Any times outside of that time frame would have to be approved because they would need access to the facility. It's kind of interesting in that we've heard through the grapevine that there's private individuals who are interested in running a business out of there. But we've also heard that there's interest amongst community groups in coming in there and maybe not providing full-time concession services, but during special events to meet the needs. So it's something that we're going to have to look at and consider. Part of the proposal is the person or group making the proposal would have to indicate what the proposal is and what benefits there would be to offering it during specific times or just providing the service in general. Council's going to have to look at that if they feel that there's a need for it and what the proposals are, because part of the proposal is indicating how the township as a whole will benefit. So we can't separately meter off any of the hydro or any services like that. So anything coming in would have to show that there's going to be some kind of monetary benefit to the township so that we're not asking for those services, particularly if it's coming from business. I think it's because we wouldn't want to subsidize. And then also a commercial business could be taxable, is something to keep in mind. But it's really a good opportunity for community groups too to use as a fundraiser and things. So I mean it just depends who comes forward and expresses that interest. So there is some limitation on the timing because you can't have them operating out of there when the staff are not there.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying when the facility is open, they can operate. When it's not open, they can't. What I'm saying is, my question was, yeah, it's open, for example, Blythe is open from 8 till 5. But no, you can only operate your concession booth from 5 till 9. Like, I'm just making sure we're not pigeonholing when they can operate when the facility is open. If the facility is open and they want to operate from 8 till 5, have at it. But if it's not open, you can't dictate when you're going to operate. I just don't think we should be able to dictate when they're operating if the facility is open and they have access to the area.
So
if they have access to the area,
yes.
they can walk in the front door and get staffed. They should be able to operate.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, if they can open the door, I don't want our RFP to say, you can only operate, because we know the times that it is 5 till 9, because we know that's when a lot of people go there.
No, that would not say that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, let's start with Chris and then Rick.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how long it takes to heat up oil for fries. Like if they need extra time, like an extra hour of just getting that thing heated up, we might have to make a concession towards them in that regard if it was possible. But Vicki, make sure through Vicki, make sure that you and I are aware of one group that was wondering why they couldn't do it. And so just make sure all the different groups are aware and have equal shot at it. But, we were told that this one group was very, very interested, so.
Through you, Reed. I had a person at my door today said she's been complaining since June with the building manager of a church group about, and her concern was thrashers coming up. And I don't know how we can speed things up if interested. Thrashers is after our next council meeting.
Through you, your worship. So I do believe she has been speaking with the facility manager. I just got back today and that was one of the concerns that was brought forward to me today, and that's why I mentioned that tonight in the verbal report and not in the written report about thrashers. So as it sits right now, council has made the decision that those booths be closed, so staff cannot rent the space out or lease it out. So if and for the RFP portion of it, we're unable to have that completed and in place before threshers. So if council so wished for the booth to be available for, say, a community group to use during threshers and something, I would just need some kind of a resolution or something from council stating that we could do something like that. And stating on a temporary basis that for the Threshers event, that staff be committed to allow community group usage of the concession booth and the like.
So right now, we have this resolution on the table. We should take care of this motion. And if somebody would like to bring a motion forward stating that, I'm not sure how we're gonna state that, I'll maybe call on Vicki to help us, that Carson's gonna do it. So we'll start with this one first. Just a couple of things on your, what you're gonna put out. Are you gonna put out the booths to work together, like one person? Okay, so it's gonna be separate. When you put it out, are you thinking about something like we have with the Legion of Wingham in the trailer park, where the Legion would operate it, show us the costing, and then split 50-50 or whatever agreement we make, or a church group or whatever group, so that, because these are volunteers, I'm presuming, this group could run that and say at the end of the year, we made or lost, whatever, and we'll share in that. Let's stick with the made, not the lost.
Through your worship, the group would have to come forward with that proposal.
But we would look at that proposal, you would bring that, thank you, you'd bring that before us, okay. There's a motion on the table. Go ahead, mover and seconder. Can I have a show of hands in favor? Carries. Carson, could you give us a second motion?
So, to run for the treasury?
Yes.
So basically, the process would probably be that whoever is looking to run it, bring that, they send a letter to Township of North Huron. That letter gets put on the council agenda, and then it becomes considered by council.
So when's the Threshers? Weekend after one weekend in September.
So why wouldn't we do this? Well, let's just make a motion that if the Threshers, is it gonna be the Threshers that want it? If the Threshers sent,
If a community group.
if a community group were to send a letter to the staff asking for permission to use that during the Thrashers reunion, the staff can make that decision of yes.
What happens if there's two?
Fight it then. Okay.
It's only one,
Are we good with that?
I don't have an issue, I don't have an issue if the staff want to take that on. I just would hope that the staff have the same checks and balances in place to ensure that the municipality is covered in the event of insurance and all that other things are checked off before we just go and sign off and say, go ahead and run your booth.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with Ken, especially with how the investigation isn't used for that long.
Okay, Rick? Okay, so- Yeah, no, okay, understand. So Rick?
And the peak briars and stuff will not be used with thrashers because the Lions do that. And they don't want to undertake what happens at the other church groups. It'll just be soup sandwiches, lasagna.
So
stuff
then,
like that.
so to add to the motion and to make sure that
all necessary, all necessary requirements are met.
yes,
The Department of Health.
Well, that's their
That's
own
the-
requirement.
That's the big one.
But the Department of Health has to be required by them.
Yeah.
We don't respond to
yeah,
that.
gentlemen,
That's what
gentlemen,
I'm saying.
Vicky's got an answer here, gentlemen. Go ahead, Vicky.
Through your worship, I was just gonna say that the necessary, rental requirements be met.
Keeping it back, the motion, I'll ask for your second.
And if a community group approaches the township of North Huron with interest in running the concession booth for the Threshers, staff are delegated the authority to make this decision and that the necessary rental requirements be met.
Do I have a mover? I have Kevin and I have Paul. All in favor? Passes. Session 7.3.2, Vic.
Thank you, your worship. The Blythe Memorial Living Tree Fund was a fund that was created by the community for the betterment of the Blythe District Community Center. It's supported by donations in memoriam from members of the community and things. The fund is managed by the municipality, but the disbursement of the funds come forward by way of recommendation from the Blythe Memorial Living Tree Fund Committee. The committee meets 1 to 2 times a year, depending on requests that come forward and things. The meetings are advertised to the public as per the policy. There's an actual policy in place that council approved back in 2016 that outlines the steps or policy and procedures that are undertaken to release funds and how decisions are made. So the groups seeking funding from the fund are required to complete and submit an application for consideration. The application then goes to the committee. In July, the committee met to discuss requests for funding that had been submitted by the Blythe Brussels Minor Hockey Association to have a radius gate installed at the southeast corner of the arena floor. The radius gate is needed to provide direct and easy access to the area that they're currently using for the storage of the half-board system, which allows for splitting the ice, having multiple groups on the ice at one time. This was something that was mandated by Hockey Canada in 2018. And the association had to purchase, all associations across Canada had to purchase these systems, which was at a cost of around, for this particular organization, was about $5,000. The radius gate panel is, staff have looked into the cost of the radius gate panel. It is estimated to cost $5,932, including HST. The Blythe Memorial Living Tree Fund has $6,750 in the account. If the expenditure is approved by council, the balance in the account would be approximately $819. Staff have contacted the contractor regarding the completion of the project, just to determine how long it would take, and if it could be completed prior to the ice season, and ideally prior to Threshers. The contractor has confirmed that it could be done prior to Threshers if it is approved.
I'm going to read the motion that's before me. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receive the minutes of the Blythe Memorial Living Tree Fund Committee dated July 23rd, 2019 for information. And further, that council authorizes staff to proceed with the purchase and installation of a radius gate at the southeast corner of the Blythe Arena floor, and to disperse the funds from the Blythe Memorial Living Tree Fund for the associated expenses. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin and I have Anita. Questions or comments? Go ahead.
I find it admirable that they want to donate their money to these areas.
Very true.
Very helpful.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I shall call the vote. All in favor? Passes. Public Works and Facilities are next, 7.4.1, OPS 2019-31 flood planning map. Sean, do you want to talk to this first?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a fairly straightforward one. As council's aware, they had approved the flying of LiDAR this year to develop updated floodplain mappings. The old maps were somewhat dated, I believe they were circa 1977 or something like that. The LiDAR was flown. The data has been collected, with the exception of some groundwork that has to be done over the next week, I believe. And at that point, once they have all the data points they need, they're going to run it through some modeling software. And of course, that software will generate North Huron's new floodplain mapping. There's one key element, or one key question that needs answered by council for Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and specifically that is how the models to be run in relation to the housing dam's current level. So the recommendation before council tonight is that we'll use the existing level of the dam, with the addition, of course, the one extra stop log, which is an additional 11.5 inches. The reason for that recommendation is this decision is not tied to any decision on the future of the dam. This decision is based on our current operating process or protocol. So basically, this is the only thing we have to go on, the current levels. If there's a decision in the future as to a revision to the operating that would bring us up to the old historic levels, or a removal of the dam that would bring us down to naturalization, we're looking at approximately $5,000 to rerun the data points to give that new floodplain. But for the purposes of the official plan and the process that MVCA is going to be going through, they just need direction of council, and the recommendation before council is that we would tell them to use the current operating status, which is the 6 logs you see in there plus the additional 11 inches.
Thank you. I'm going to read the motion first, and then we'll have a conversation. The Council Township of North Huron hereby received a report from the Director of Public Works dated August 12, 2019 regarding floodplain mapping for information. And further, that the staff be directed to provide written instructions to the MVCA regarding the headwater levels to be used for the floodplain map. And further, that the staff be directed to provide a copy of this report to the Housing Bridge Dam Committee for information. Do I have a mover? Just takes one. Rick? Do I have a second? I have Anita. Questions or comments? I'll start. We don't have $450,000 to tear it down, and we don't have $8 million to rebuild it, so it's gonna be there. Let's start right with that. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Ken.
Through you, Rick. Would having the data at any other, at full capacity or at Return to River, would that information impact any future revenue, or not revenue, what do we call that, funding statutes, because we were using that information that we gathered at a certain level? I mean, will we have to, like if, funding was allocated but only at the original historical levels, would we then have to pay again to get the higher levels in order to get that funding? Does the gathering the information at a certain point change future abilities, yeah, to create funding?
Through you to read. Actually, that's a very good point, and one of the things that I believe they're able to do is run data at the historic level as well as at the naturalization level for the purposes of illustrating to council what what impacts those two different levels would have. So even though the official plan would show current operating status, I'm told that you would have that data so that if that was ever part or tied into a decision that was made or future funding or whatever, you would have an idea what those various levels, how those various levels would impact the floodplain and development properties.
Other questions or comments? Okay.
So that would then, Sean, the only thing you wouldn't have is if it was at the level at the old historic higher level, correct? Then basically what you're telling me?
Through you, I'm told that they can run all of those numbers, so because that discussion came up, how historic levels might impact development properties. So my understanding is they're gonna run all the numbers, it's just a matter of inputting that different baseline. But the official plan will only adopt that one set of numbers that reflects our current status.
So all of the community and the council will have the ability to see those information, but the operating parameters will only be based on the way it is today.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Passes. 7.4.2, OPS 2019-32 cleaning contract RFP outcome. Sean, would you like to speak to that first?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is the report that just keeps coming back. It's to do with the cleaning contract for Town Hall, the library, and the daycare. As council might recall, we had put an RFP out at the beginning of the year to try to develop or have a formal signed agreement with our cleaning contract. That didn't go well. We had to throw one bid out, and the other two were much, much higher than our budget would support. So council gave us the opportunity to see if we could find an employee or employees and do a hire to see if we could go that route. We ran the ads, we did go through an interview process, and after much consideration decided that our best course of action was not to proceed with a hire, but rather to put the tender out again. We put the tender out again, and this time we had a reasonable response. As council can see, we had two bidders, one bid at $92,490. The other that is currently the service provider bid at $31,020. There's no bid irregularities identified whatsoever. And of course, the benefits, we went through this the last time, but it establishes clearly defined duties, responsibilities, clarifies responsibilities to who pays for what. It includes some security measures surrounding access, so we know who's working here, and it does have a start and end date, so we're looking at a proposed three-year contract with a 6-month termination clause on the part of either party. As far as the financials, adopting this at this point in the year would result in a shortfall in our budget of $574.87, which would then be distributed across the three cost centers. So the impact of a formal hire would be negligible.
I'm going to read the motion then, and then ask for questions. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the Director of Public Works dated August 12, 2019 regarding the outcome of an RFP for cleaning services for information, and further that the contract North Huron FAC 2019-02 for the provision of cleaning services be awarded to Weiler's Cleaning and Restoration Limited in an annual amount of $31,020 plus applicable taxes for a period of 3 years. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor and I have Rick seconding. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm just curious as to why the library wasn't included in this. It's being currently cleaned by staff.
There's three. We figured because of the very, very low usage there, it would impart a fairly significant additional cost because of the distances. Because now we're required to travel to Blythe and back. So for the very little amount of cleaning that's required there, we figured we could continue status quo.
other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.4.3, this is the agricultural land leases. Sean, do you want to speak to this one too?
Thank you, Your Worship. On direction of council, we put the properties, the agricultural land lease tender out and made a few changes to the way the contracts would read. And this report basically outlines the responses. So we did incorporate, or are incorporating that termination clause into the Hutton Heights Lloyd Street, as well as airport properties, which would allow either party, specifically the township, to terminate the lease if notice was given by August 1st of any given year, and that would allow the farmer to run the property to the end of the year, but obviously makes the property available to the township for development and whatever purposes for the following year. That being said, the tenders came back. Airport and Hutton Heights were unchanged. Of course, on council's instruction, the airport was just rolled over, but there was no change in price, obviously. Hutton Heights continued at the same price. There was a slight change to the Reed Road properties, both the 25-acre property and the 7-acre property. Specifically, the 25-acre property went up by $500 a year. The 7-acre property went down by $55 per year. Outside of that, there was no bid irregularities found and everything seemed in order, so direction council will proceed in bringing the bylaw forward at the next meeting.
I will read the motion then that the council of the Township of North Ferry hereby receive the report of the Director of Public Works dated August 12, 2019 regarding the outcome of the tender for the lease of agricultural lands for information. And further, that contracts be awarded to the individuals identified in the report OPS 2019-33 for the 2020-24 term. And further, the council direct the clerk to prepare the necessary bylaws to adopt a land lease for September 3rd, 2019 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? It would be Paul, seconded by Chris. Conversations or questions? Seeing none, I call the vote. Passes. Okay, 7.4.4, Sean, this is you again. This is authorization release of training funds for the Housing Bridge Dam Committee. Can you speak to that first?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the report before council right now is tied to the fact that the mandate in terms of reference for the Housing Bridge and Dam Committee dictate the fact that they do not have spending authority. They're getting to the point now where the work plan is in latter stages of development, and they would like to start meeting with some of the delegates. In looking at this, what we've done is, what you have before you is a couple of tables, and the thinking is that we would, staff went out to get pricing based on the areas of specialization. So what you see before you, the first table shows groups or organizations that would provide very specific technical expertise surrounding the asset. So the asset in general, the idea would be that these delegates or delegations would be able to help the committee understand the asset as a whole. The next table before on the report identifies, we'll call them function-focused delegations. These are delegations that would have expertise in a specific area. You know, there's an individual on, or a group on here that specializes in removal and naturalization. There's another that has generated a report speaking to repair, that sort of thing. So, and then what we've done is done our best to get pricing for these various delegations to come forward. If approved by council, then the committee at that point can invite the specific delegations that were approved to meet with them at their upcoming meetings in the hope that they would, be able to understand the asset, understand some of the implications to the various functions, and then move forward with the rest of it.
So I'm gonna read the motion then, and we'll have a conversation. That the Council of the Township of North Yarra hereby receive the report of the Director of Public Works dated August 12, 2019 regarding the request to release dedicated education and training funds of the Housing Bridge Dam Committee for information. And further, the funds be the amount of $6,410 be released from the Housing Dam reserves for use by the Housing Dam Bridge Dam Committee for the purpose of training and education. Do I have a mover? Rick, sorry. Yeah, Rick. Seconder. Kevin. Before we start this, I'm gonna make it very clear, this is not from our tax dollars this year. This money, I believe, has been sitting there being used for this type of purpose. Started out at, I think, $400,000 since about 1980. Matter of fact, it's been so long, my mother was a deputy rebond council when it started. So, go ahead.
Is council invited to all these meetings too, or are they doing separate meetings, or how will this be set up?
It's just a regular meeting, it's video.
Yeah, but it's not a, like a day meeting where they invite people, like say, start at 9 o'clock and then have all those people come in, and what is the purpose of
I
this?
believe it's so.
Like the KGS group did a really large assessment last year and it cost a lot of money, and now they want to have somebody come in again. So they could look at the video too from last year for information purposes.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's a good point. If I could put it into perspective, we've got an excellent group of varying opinions on the board. But each individual segment is coming to the group with their own information. And some of it is old, some of it's new, some's not relevant, but they have their own information. The only way I can see them coming to a consensus is if they all listen to the same information at the same time. We're going to go through everyone's reports. But if quite a few of them haven't heard it they've just read the report and read their own thought process into it. I think by hearing it from the group themselves, or from the engineers themselves, explaining it to them, it will give them a much broader perspective. Plus, they'll be able to ask questions. The questions that they're using to fortify their own opinion may not have been what was in the report, or what was meant in the report. It's just their take on it. So by going through at least the top resources, yes, we've already spent money for coring and money for this report, money for that report, but it's been the same problem. They didn't trust this report. They wanted another one. They didn't trust that one. The only way you're going to get it together, get all the information into one group in front of them, hopefully we can come to a consensus as to how to go forward. But until everyone has had the ability to hear from the engineer on what he meant in the report, there's quite a few reports didn't go far enough, or maybe went too far in one direction. Just to get rid of those sticking points and have a chance to have a conversation with the engineer, I think might, or might not, appease the group to come to a consensus.
So I get a follow-up a bit on that. It is a public meeting, and Dwayne, I believe we can let all the councilors know for each meeting, make sure that they're ready for each meeting, so we can come. It's no different than a council meeting, we hold another council meeting. I gotta be honest about this. When I read a lot of the reports, I don't care if somebody sees me over this either. If that council wanted done away with, that's what the engineer said. Then came the next council. If they wanted to keep it, that's what that engineer said. Then came the next council. If they wanted to get rid of it, that's what that engineer said. So what Kevin's saying is we picked up on this, is just the flavor of the day. council has taken themselves the political side of it out of it, and we've given it over to this committee to have a comment. We're still gonna hold the power to do or not do something with it. But what we've done now is we've taken the council part of it out, and the committee is sitting down there as a group of people that may or may not be interested in keeping up, but they're hearing it as a group of people, and they've said to us at the meeting that we'd like to hear certain people, not all of them, and we'd like them to tell us why they said this, because when this council wanted to get rid of it, that company said yes, and then when this council came along and didn't want to, they said no. So this committee is bringing that to me, so that when this committee is done, what we're hoping, Kevin is hoping, is they'll be able to come before council and say, it's all said and done after 40 years, and this is where we get rid of it, we keep it, or whatever. And there's no political bias in it. So that's, if that helps you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I still find it a little bit concerning that when you say like it's, they don't trust the reports, they are like massive reports, they don't give an opinion of tearing down a building or repairing or whatever, it's just a report of what it is, and then they don't trust it, so how much, their reports from 4 years ago, will you have the same person evaluate that report again? Will he give the same opinion on that? It's-
Kevin, we're gonna let Sean answer.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. Through you, Reed. I think one of the benefits that I see is that as I sit back as staff and listen to the committee, there are varying opinions on the interpretation of some of the reports. That there's been a lot of that dispute and debate, and I think Councillor Faulkner hit on it. They've all been instructed to read the reports. Every evidence is that the committee has read the reports. This gives them the opportunity to have these individuals sitting here to say, okay, this is what you said. We can either agree with them or correct them. At the end of it, because there's that two-way interaction, the hope would be that the entire group would at the very least be understanding the intent of the reports. As you said, they're horribly technical in nature, so that it should eliminate some of the question on interpretation, and maybe even, let's leave it with that. A couple of the delegations, BM Ross is an interesting one in that they bring a whole bunch of the history. The individual that I spoke to and that would speak is Andy Ross. He's been involved with this thing for years. So again, it allows the committee to look at some of the older reports, question and answer period ensues, and then hopefully they would understand the process and how they got to whatever point they landed on there, and so on and so forth. Again, OMAFR brings a very interesting common law and Drainage Act perspective, gives them the opportunity to have the same level of interaction that council had when they met with Sid Vanderveen earlier this year. So I think that was the whole idea, is that it would eliminate issues with interpretation or understanding of the intent and allow that interaction.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, my thoughts are the same as Anita's. I'm worried about, I didn't realize that these committees would burn through money to help make decisions, and a little concerned that there's 15 grand still in the kitty, I think. And there'll be people, some of our citizens that are definitely against doing anything with the dam, and seeing the 15,000 and saying, okay, I'm upset that it's being used, because it could be seed money towards, in their minds, taking it down, as an example. So I think, okay, this is new for us all. I had no idea that committees would had expenses like this. I'm making more sense. When I first read this in our agenda on the weekend, I thought, holy smoke. But as you're explaining it, it's making a little bit more sense. But I am concerned about some of the groups just saying, I don't believe it. because they have already. And, you know, what's next? What's your next step? I'm glad you're chairing it. But, you know, you should be thinking about what's the next step for the naysayers. Because it's gonna, you know, if some of these people are so set on one opinion or the other, it's really hard to satisfy. Well, it's easy to satisfy and do what they want, but to show them the truth, I guess. So, may the force be with you.
Trevor? So, it shouldn't, so one thing I have one comment. It shouldn't be surprising that this committee is asked for this money, because it was talked about in the terms of reference that they were gonna be allocated
It
some
was
money.
available.
It was available, so it shouldn't be a surprise that they're asking for it. The concern, I don't have a concern at all. And the reason I don't have a concern is because during the previous council, the last 4 years, the public didn't have the same opportunities to ask these engineers questions because the public consultation part of the committee or the council meetings were gone. So council could only ask the question. So where the comment there is, was there political bias in the answers to the questions or the reports? I sat through them. I don't believe there was. However, that's of a varying opinion. The issue is that these individuals may have questions that they couldn't have asked during the last council term or the council term before that, because they weren't involved in it or they didn't have the ability to, because they weren't able to ask those questions because public consultation part was taken out of the meeting. So by giving them the opportunity to ask every question that they want to ask, there's now no excuse that they didn't get the information or the interpretation wrong, because it's going to be black and white. It's still going to be, whether it's gray or not, they're going to get it right from the word of mouth, and they're going to go based on the information that they were given and the parameters that we as council before gave them, and the council before that gave them to, and the council before that. So they're gonna hear all this from the person who we've already paid them, and they're not gonna change their story. They're just gonna get the ability to said committee member, please interpret this for me so I understand. And everybody's gonna hear the same thing, and then it's gonna be black and white. Now they gotta talk about whether they're gonna agree with the report or not. And that to me is gonna be most damning, because now they gotta sit there like we did, the council before us, and figure out who are we going to believe. Because everybody's gonna have a varying opinion about what that is and how it should be dealt with. All of those groups have varying opinions about what's going on and what should happen to it. So to me, I think this will give that committee as much knowledge as they need, and then there is no excuse, in my mind. Maybe you other councilors have a different opinion, and maybe the chair does too. But to me, it gives them no excuse to say, I didn't give them the resources or the ability to ask the people questions about the report, regardless of whether they agree with it or not. I think that gives them an opportunity to do it. And then if they say, well, I didn't get the answer I was asking, that's not our problem. You had a 2-hour meeting with the gentleman, or the lady, or whoever it was. So make sure when we come, you've got your laundry list of questions, because you're only gonna get one shot at this.
Are there further questions or comments? I think we've run this one around the room pretty good. Go ahead.
So, we're going to be having these people coming in before long at the next meeting,
I'm gonna let Kevin answer that, won't be at the next meeting.
It'll be on their availability.
Yeah.
We know Sean's been working at it. I think we're headlining for September. I don't like that, just, the other meeting's in 2 days, so, it's too early to do anything with the fund, we're just asking for them now, so. I do believe we'll start in September. I'm not sure which group will get first. I'll just be on their availability.
And these meetings are public meetings, any public person can come. like a council meeting, you just can't bark out from the audience. If you wanna speak to you have to put a request in to speak to the committee. And that's for any citizen of North Huron or any other place, if they wanna speak to anything on it. And we as councillors can come and sit and listen to. So yeah, it's a completely public meeting, but it is held like a council meeting. It is not a,
Free for all.
oh, yeah, that's it.
That's what he said.
Okay, anything else? Seeing no hands going up, I call the motion, all in favor? Passes. 7.4.5, the 2019-36, the fire hall and public works garage emergency power. Sean, can you please speak to this one first?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so as council's probably aware, when we went into the design build for the fire hall and public works garage in Blythe, it did not include a generator, it included a generator pad, much like the ESTC. Once everything was sized and we had the final designs in front of us, we asked the question, okay, well, what would the generator look like? And it's a good thing it was done that way, because the generator was a lot bigger than we originally anticipated, because it was sized to power the entire unit. That being because this is a post-disaster building and an alternate EOC, so you would want full availability for an emergency services building. With that in mind, they came back to us with a spec and with a design which required moving the pad to a different location. There was a few extra things that were required, and provided us with the proposal that's before council tonight. Basically, that would be, the generator itself would be at a cost of $55,600. It would be a natural gas generator, and again, as I said, would be sized adequately to provide full emergency backup. We talked with the treasurer, and there was a couple, as well as the fire chief, and there's a couple of funding opportunities, specifically through reserve, because had we brought this to council and said we can just use contingency, this would be enough to burn through just about all of the contingency, and we thought that was not really a wise approach on the second week of the building. So that being said, $18,550 of this was in an emergency planning reserve, and this was money that our treasurer has been, over the years, putting aside for that ESTC generator. So she was able to get $18,550 put away. There was remaining funds that were in a fire department reconciliation reserve. And in discussion with the fire chief, he definitely thought this was a very good place to draw those funds from. It has no impact whatsoever on any of the funding partners or anything like that, so this was money that was available for North Huron to be applied to fire services. So the recommendation before council is that, we proceed with the change order, adding the generator to the build, and secondly, that it be funded as I just outlined before, and then finally, that the treasurer be instructed to make the necessary amendments to the 2019 budget.
I will read the motion first, and we'll have a conversation. That the council township of North Huron hereby receive a report of the Director of Public Works dated August 12, 2019 regarding costs associated with the provisions of standby power for the Blythe Fire Hall and Public Works Garage for information. And further, that Dawn Construction Limited be authorized to proceed with the purchase and installation of a suitable size standby generator for the Blythe Fire Hall and Public Works Garage at a cost of $55,600 plus applicable taxes. And further, that the council authorize funds totaling $18,550 to be transferred from the emergency planning reserve to be applied towards the cost of the generator. And further, that the council authorize funds totaling $38,030 to be transferred from the fire department reconciliation reserve to cover the remaining costs associated with the purchase and installation of the generator. And further, that the director of finance be directed to make the necessary amendments to the 2019 budget to reflect the changes to the Blythe Fire Hall and Public Works Garage project. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor. Do I have questions or comments? Go ahead, Anita.
You said natural gas was more reliable than diesel during an emergency. Can you-
Because we had quite a bit of a discussion around that. Now, you're always going to find situations where one fuel source is severed over the other. I guess it was my understanding that natural gas became a problem when we dealt with the tornadoes in Goderich. But typically speaking, when you're into a crisis situation with natural gas, you're tied to the system. We're not then relying on fuel delivery from service providers. It tends to get very difficult to be high on the priority list for these big fuel suppliers when there's a crisis, when there's long-standing power outages, that sort of thing. So the thought was that natural gas source was far more reliable.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. Everybody in favor? Passes. Okay, 7.5, there is nothing from the fire department. 7.6, there is nothing from the building department. 7.7, there's nothing from the childcare department. 7.8, 7.8.1, the CAO has something. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thanks, Reed. So as council recall, back in November of 2018, there was a subdivision agreement was signed between the township and GJAJ Holdings, which is the Rutledge subdivision at the north end of Blythe. And as part of that subdivision agreement, the developer is responsible for the design and the installation of the municipal services. But after the installation has been completed to municipality satisfaction, the services are transferred or assumed by a municipality, and from that point onward, we're responsible for the services. In terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the services that are going to be installed, they're going to be installed on lands that, there's 4 areas within the plan of subdivision in which the services will be installed, but those 4 areas will actually be transferred eventually into private ownership. And as the owner and responsible for the maintenance of those services, will need access to those areas that will be on privately owned lands. So as part of the subdivision agreement, those areas are to be transferred in the form of an easement agreement to municipality. So what you have before you are bylaw is basically establishing those easements. Since the subdivision agreement was signed, there has been a transfer in ownership of the subdivision between 2 companies now, but those 2 companies are still owned or under the control of the same individual. But for the purposes of administration, we do need to pass or adopt 2 bylaws for 2 easement agreements because the property itself is now in 2 ownerships. So there's a recommendation there for council's consideration, but I'll maybe just, because easement agreements, we're really carrying through the subdivision agreement that was previously approved, that we're asking for consideration, that would be considered an administrative matter, and that council grant an exception and pass those bylaws this evening.
Okay, so I'm going to read the bylaw 7.1. Is an easement agreement with GJAJ Holdings and Rutledge Holdings Limited, Rutledge subdivision. That the council of the township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the CEO dated August 12, 2019 regarding easement agreements with GJAJ Holdings Limited and Rutledge Holding Limited / Rutledge subdivision / for information. And further, that the council adopt bylaw 80-2019 and 81-2019 being of bylaws authorizing the reeve and clerk to sign all necessary documents to complete easement agreements with GJAJ Holdings Limited and Rutledge Holdings Limited, the Rutledge subdivision. And further, that the council deem the easement agreements with GJAJ Holdings Limited and Rutledge Holdings Limited to be an administrative matter and grants the exception to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw, allowing for bylaws 80-2019 and 81-2019 to be adopted at the August 12th, 2019 regular meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Christopher and I have Anita. Do I have questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Seven point 8.2 revised site plan agreement, 82 Kerr Drive, Wingham. Dwayne, I'm going to get you to speak to this, and then we'll read the.
Sure, thank you, Richard. So, at the July 2nd regular meeting, council received a report and a site plan from Laura Simpson, our planner, and it was regarding proposed gas station development with a canopy and pumps, a convenience store and a drive-through restaurant here in Wingham, 82 Kerr Drive, so lands adjacent to the existing Tim Hortons. And at that same meeting, the Committee of Adjustment, which is comprised of all members of councils, considered and approved a minor variance application for that same development. The minor variance application was approved, and there were no appeals, and the variances are now in effect in force. And at the July 2nd meeting, council gave first and second reading to the site plan agreement, being bylaw 67 of 2019. However, withheld third reading pending the outcome of the minor variance application. And as I've indicated, there were no appeals. Since that time, there have been some changes that, as a result of further discussions made to the site plan agreement. And the purpose of this report, and I'll just highlight 4 key changes that were made to the site plan agreement. So I'll make sure council is aware and informed of the changes. First, there was concern expressed with the design, timing, and method. There is a process whereby we have to remove peat from the site, and there is the potential for methane gas to be present. So address that concern, the developer has agreed to add a condition that basically states that the developer is to provide the CDO with a detailed venting system that is verified by due technical engineer for suitable compassion or bearing to address subgrade gases prior to installing engineered fill. So I want to ensure that the concern with respect to potential subgrade gases is addressed. There was also further discussions regarding a retaining wall that is proposed for the development, and as a result of that, the developer did make some revisions to the retaining wall, and that was for the purposes of changing the slope of that retaining wall. And to accommodate that change, the developer agreed to add a condition whereby the owner, the developer, is to provide the CBO with engineered stamp drawings of the retaining wall prior to issuance of a building permit. So I want to ensure that the changes that are being made to the retaining wall are engineered. In terms of the third change, the next 2 amendments were primarily for clarity and quality assurance regarding stormwater drainage. There were some further discussions between the township's engineer and the developer's engineer, and it was suggested that these 2, one dealing with the backflow of Flapgate and the other dealing with backfilling in the area below the retaining wall. The fourth, and I would suggest the most significant change, has to do with the proposed development does require an environmental compliance approval. This is, we refer to it as ECA. This is approval that is issued by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And Huron County Public Works has been involved in this discussion, and it's been noted by them that there have been increasing timelines in terms of getting those ministry approvals. And the developer wants to proceed and get going with the development. So there were some further discussions, and basically the Huron County Public Works presented some options, and the developer did select one of those options, which basically allows the developer to proceed with the installation of the stormwater drainage infrastructure in the county's right of way, in advance of receiving the environmental compliance approval. Typically, you'd have your receive environmental compliance approval, and then you would proceed to do the installation. But the county's indicated that they're accepting of the developer proceeding without the ECA. However, in the event or through the ECA process, the developer is accepting the responsibility and the risk that if the ECA is not approved or changes are made to it, the developer is accepting full responsibility for that. So if the developer installs infrastructure and ministry comes along and says not acceptable and has to rip it all out, that's clearly the developer's proceeding at their own risk and at their own cost. And further to that, because of that, in the original site plan agreement, we were asking for securities of $30,000, but we've upped that now to $40,000, because if things do not proceed as planned and we as a municipality end up having to become involved, we want to make sure that there's sufficient funds available for us to deal with any outfall. So you'll see in the report there an amended or an addition to the site plan agreement. So anyways, the purpose of the report was just to highlight the changes that are proposed to the site plan agreement between second and third reading. And again, there's been a lot of discussions with the developer, and the developer is accepting of all those amendments or all those changes to the agreement.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm gonna read the motion and then I'm at it. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the CAO dated August 12, 2019 regarding revisions to the site plan agreement with KRS Holdings Wingham Inc. for the proposed gas bar and store and restaurant at 82 Kerr Drive, Wingham. And further, the council give third reading of bylaw 67-2019, being a site plan agreement with KRS Holdings Wingham Inc. Do I have a mover? I have Anita, and I have Paul seconding it. Conversation, questions, go ahead, Trevor.
Dwayne, what would be the reason this particular development would need environmental compliance approval and the one across the street from Tim Hortons did not? Do you know why that is?
Sean may clearly answer that, but my recollection is that the 86 board did require the ECA.
They did, we just never,
No.
we were never notified, like, I
It's
don't,
in the site plan agreement.
it was in the site plan that they got it, or they had to get it?
They have to get it.
So they're doing the same, the one that's being under construction now, did they take all that risk as well?
No, they basically are getting the incremental compliance approval, and then they're proceeding with the work.
Okay.
In this case, the developer wants to proceed in advance of the ECA.
Okay.
And that's not typically what happens.
No, okay.
But we've come to this agreement with the developer that if you want to go ahead and do it, you can do it, but you're doing it at your risk. You're not doing it because, you're doing it because you want to do it. This is not typically how we do it. There's nothing to say you can't do it, but there is risk involved. But the developer is accepting full responsibility for that risk in this case.
So current infrastructure on the construction that's being done right now on 486, there's nothing in there that they put in the ground yet that would be for that ECA?
They have, through your worship, and correct me, Sean, but I believe the ECA has been submitted for that development.
So yes.
You've signed off on it.
Okay.
So in the midst of them backfilling, and in the midst of getting their building permit, they, in the meantime, they have submitted their application to the ministry for the environmental compliance approval. So,
But it could
there's
stop.
paralleling.
But, yeah, but it could, if they get to the point where they are going to put stuff in the ground and they don't have that approval, construction stops.
It could slow, or there'll be phone calls going to the ministry, I'm sure.
Correct. Okay. I just wanna make sure I understood what
Yep.
because it seemed an odd time here on one wants to do it without it, and I didn't recall reading that in the other site plan agreement, that wasn't there.
So if you have a look at that agreement, I think you'll find,
Yep.
the same wording.
That's okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call a vote. All in favor? Carries. Okay, let's go down to 8 correspondence. We have the Wingham District Hospital Foundation request for support and the use of the outdoor space in the front of the town hall. Carson, would you like to address this one?
Thanks, Your Worship. So basically, this is a letter that North Huron received from the Wingham and District Hospital Foundation. And what they're requesting is the use of the public space out in front of Town Hall on Josephine Street for their 7th annual Great Hospital Race to take place on Saturday, October 5th. And basically, they want to use the area for a puzzle-based challenge that their participants would be involved in. And so this event was discussed with AON and they had no concerns. However, they advised that the Wingham and District Hospital Foundation add the township as an additional insured on their liability policy, and the Wingham and District Hospital Foundation had no concerns with doing this.
I'm gonna read the motion first, and then with you. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby support the request by the Wingham and District Hospital Foundation and authorizes the use of the space outside the town hall for the 7th annual Great Hospital Race on Saturday, October 5th, 2019, to raise funds for the medical equipment. And further, that the Wingham and District Hospital Foundation add the township as an additional insurer to their liability policy for this purpose. Do I have a mover? Trevor, do I have a seconder? Anita? Questions or comments? Very quiet. In that case, I will call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 8.2, proposed Blythe pedestrian crosswalk. Mike Hauser, manager of the Public Works of Huron County. Sean, do you want to speak to this one before we read the motion?
Certainly can.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship. So, as council might be aware, of course, the county came, they made a presentation, and we're proposing a pedestrian crosswalk. There was a couple of options. One was an intersection-based, the other was a mid-block based crosswalk. They held the PIC, the Public Information Center, in July, and the majority of the support was for the mid-block. The location that they were recommending was basically right across from the old CIBC. There would be 2 bump outs so that would allow pedestrians to get out into traffic kind of equal with the parked vehicles. I believe that there's a loss of a couple of parking spots. But the feedback that they got was very positive from the community. Again, the preference appeared to be mid-block, so they were going to proceed with that. The only thing that they've cautioned me on now is, of course, because of timelines, they're certainly going to try, if approved by council, it'll go into county council. They're going to try to have construction in 2019, but it may very well, depending on how things line up, maybe bump to a 2020 project.
Okay. I'm going to read the motion that the Council Township of North Huron hereby receive a report titled Proposed Blythe Pedestrian Crossing dated August 12, 2019 by Mike Hauser, Manager of the Public Works, Huron County, as submitted. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron direct staff to coordinate with the Huron County staff for the installation of the mid-block pedestrian crossing as described in the report. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a second? I have Rick.
Okay.
Questions or comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
It's just to the other concerns in the Lodge Village that were identified in this report. I'm looking for council direction as to address some of these, to just bring them forward as a motion to a later council meeting to address some of these, or is that strictly the staff thing?
You and I want to have a conversation later if you want to talk about in-depth, like at another meeting rather than, or just something you feel comfortable speaking of.
Well, yeah, no, I was just, my concern about some of the requests for sidewalk.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's all it was,
Yeah.
it was presenting to us, was that an in-house thing, or is that have to be a direction of council?
I think you should have a conversation with Dwayne first, and then he'll instruct you on where we should go. Yeah, I know what you want. Yeah, but yeah, that's the way to do that. Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Rick.
I got concerns about the crosswalk, how it will be used. The theater gets out, it's just shoot, across the road. Those that are parked south, are they gonna go down and use the crosswalk or just on the street?
I'm gonna throw that back over.
And secondly, I think there's more of a problem with traffic, what's on the road. That's more hindrance than lead to crosswalk. It's a lot of money being spent for, just how I feel.
So you're just, when you say that, you're talking about the speed of the traffic?
Speed
That's
and
what-
what's on the road, the trucks, the farm vehicles.
Yeah.
I seen one the other day, had to throw his equipment up on the bridge where the sidewalk was to get by the trucks, just down the hill. I live on Queen Street.
Yeah, yeah. Sean, did you want to address that a bit?
Are we addressing the real problem this one?
I think through you, Reba, it was my understanding that this was something that was brought forward to the county, I believe it was last year, there was requests, and they looked at it. They found that the numbers supported it in terms of pedestrian traffic. It certainly doesn't solve all the traffic problems. There's still the intersection of 25 and 4, there's the speed going through the village. For what it's worth, I have had a discussion with Mike, and later this year, there'll be a report coming to council because we would like to have more speed reduction signs going through the village. We did note that there's a couple issues as you head north. There's really no signage until way up the hill, so what even I've witnessed, you see people coming down that hill towards the bridge, they spool up. They figure it's highway time. On top of that, there's also the new Rutledge subdivision that's going in, the new fire hall that's going in. So one of the things that we'd like to see is the move that speed out further so that we maintain the 50 through the village instead of posted.
They just put a sign up last week, just past the bridge going north.
Oh, they did? Okay.
County.
Yeah, that's a county road, we're not paying for anything on that.
No.
To me, it's kind of strange you gotta pay for the water and sewer, I'm not gonna do it, but anyway, don't get into that, my friend. Yeah, so, you've made, your staff aware of your concerns, and I think we'll do some follow-ups on that, because even myself, it is a narrow main street, and the trucks aren't getting, tractors aren't getting any smaller. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris?
Yeah, I feel that as long as something's being done, if it's the start of something being done, and I think it's important. I go to the plays and it's willy-nilly across the road, and I don't like it. I would rather, use a crosswalk, so. I think it's just a start, and I think it'd be a good start.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
I think, Rick does have a point. At the end of the day, it's self, whether you're going to use it or you're not. Like, people are going to just walk across the road if they want to walk across the road, they feel safe. That is gonna be fact. There's other issues with that piece of, within the village of Blythe that are more to do with traffic and pedestrian safety, the narrower of the road, there's a whole bunch of other issues that, this is a help. I will not guarantee this is gonna solve the issues about traffic, pedestrian. I'm just surprised we haven't had any issues today. This will help at that, I'm hoping, but you're still gonna have people that are gonna walk across. There's no hindrance of that. But I think it's a start. I think we just we have to, because it's a county road and because there's other issues with it, this is a stepping stone to other things that we need to have conversations with the county about as it relates to the Blythe Village and how traffic is we're dealing with traffic within the Queen Street and Blythe. So I think there's more up to it that we need to fully be involved in what that discussion is.
I'm gonna follow with that too, just a thought I had from previous days on council. We had talked, the OPP, if we ask them, they will monitor the situation. But I believe it comes at a cost. Trevor, could you, at the police meeting, could you have a conversation with them and say, these issues have been brought forward before the council, and what is the cost of having an OPP officer have a, I mean, I know I'm the guy that keeps speeding up on that sign, but has it giving tickets out, or at least some presence there on the main street when the theater's getting out to get people to think. Could you have that conversation with them and get back to
I
us?
can ask the question, you're talking about the difference between the two contracts now. So I can ask the question of Wendy to see what that would be, and she can get back to me as a board member, and I can bring it back to council.
I appreciate that. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I believe I have a mover and seconder, so I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Okay, council reports. Leaves activity report. We're gonna be all heading, a few of us are gonna be heading out this weekend. I have, when we were at the meeting in Ottawa, I have 2 presentations to make. One to do with county council and the problem that us, brought on by Bernie McLean out of East Huron, Bernie McClellan, sorry, out of East Huron. And it's to do with the fact, the same thing we're running into, is we have somebody holding a chunk of land and doesn't want to build on it, so therefore we cannot build anywhere else in this wilderness, and apparently this is happening all over. So we're gonna have that one, and I've been asked to speak before one of the ministers for the Blythe Theatre. And I will be doing that too, as well as going to all the information packs. Staff, Dwayne and myself have been working very, very hard on this situation with staffing for our local companies that employ people. We have a very grieved situation, a very hard situation for all of them. Just want you to know that we're working with the county. We're having several meetings with the different shareholders in the problem, and more people are getting involved. There's not an easy fix. The long-term fix is more housing and getting people to move here, which will help us as far as getting our taxes down. But even as a town, it's going to take us a minimum of 2 years to build that first house out at Hutton Heights. Huron County, and I believe all of southwestern Ontario, by the sounds of it, maybe all of Ontario, are facing the fact that we do not have enough employees to do the job. And we have Gailey Foods and Westcast and Brightspan and Royal Homes right in our own hometown that are just having a master problem with keeping, getting new staff and getting people to stay in our area, simply because it falls back on the fact there's no place to live. And nobody's gonna drive 2 hours from London, from the other side of London, or from Kitchener, or, I mean, I guess I went to Kitchener for 3 years for a job, but I'm a little silly that way. But they're not gonna drive back and forth, so we're trying to work on everything, and I just want the rest of council to know that the staff is working very hard on this, and there is a lot on the go. And Dwayne and I are going to a lot of meetings upon this and doing what we can. We do seem to have made headway. For instance, Westcast said they had an average of a couple of people, I can't remember if it was a day or it was a week, showing up asking for work. And with the press release sent out by Mr. Watson from the Economic Development for Huron County, they had 40 people show up that week and ask for a job. So we're getting things going. The problem is, again, nobody's gonna drive an hour, 2 hours one way for a job and stay on the job. It's just asking too much. So our Hutton Heights project is very, very important if we put the right housing in it. I'm not, so I just wanted to touch on that one a bit, where we're going, and I think that's it for me tonight. Council member reports, verbal, written updates, members who want to sit on boards or committees. Anybody sitting on a board or committee have comments to make?
Well, it's not really about a board or a committee. The federal minister of agriculture was in Brussels, and we went to the meeting and spoke with her a little bit. Talked about rural issues, and it was really nice, really approachable, and it was a good one.
Great. Just while you're up, how is the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority making out with the drastic cuts that they're having? I know this is affecting all conservation authorities, but how, as our representative, how are they getting along?
Well, they're getting along, but it's really not, they're putting stuff. We are having summer meetings right now, so we are looking at projects that are doing right now, so it's a little, meetings are a little bit different right now in the summer.
With the summers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all.
Yeah, it's hard, they're trying to work with what they have and, yeah, go from there.
I think it's kind of the wave of the near future. We're all gonna be squeezed. But they got hit pretty hard. Any other counselors, comments, or Paul, go ahead?
They had a follow-up of urine, sustainable urine. And the thing that I just noticed, there's a thing coming up from Councillor Palmer here, but Ashfield, they're looking at their municipal land for building. It's so close to Goderich, there's a real opportunity there, around Dungannon area and whatnot, the old land. So it's going to be interesting. I see what Councillor Palmer brought up there. It's hopefully we're going to be able to look at some of that too.
Nashville, they've got, I believe it's a 400 house development going on along the lake just
Yeah.
outside of Goderich. I mean, this is where the tax relief is. I think even, I know it's a farming country in ECW, but they realize that it's the 400 houses that are reducing their taxes because the taxes paid in that land are just phenomenal as compared to farmland. So they've got the development going on there and they see the light, that's the future. And it's also helping all of us. I mean, people can drive from Goderich and be comfortable to come to work in the factory in Wingham or Teeswater or Seaford or Exeter. So yeah, that's good. Anyone else? Seeing no hands going up, we'll move on to just comments by members. Any comments from the members? Not to do with that's it. Thank you, there's no comments. Notice of motion, request by Councillor Palmer, the council direct staff to investigate all North Huron owned properties for suitable development purposes. So that's, do we even go? No.
No, so that'll be on,
Yeah.
since the notice of motions of this
Yeah.
meeting, it'll come back for discussion at the first meeting in September.
And we can follow up then, and then of course, Trevor, the council direct staff to review the youth-friendly committee initiative to provide a timeline as to its implementation. And again, we'll talk about that, I believe, at the next yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. Bylaws. Third and final reading, being a bylaw to enter into a site plan control agreement with KRS Holdings Wingham Inc., 82 Curve Drive, Wingham Ward, Township of North Huron. Bylaw, is that another one, or is that on the same? That's a continue. Bylaw number 67, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement between the corporation of the Township of North Huron and KRS Holdings, Wingham Inc. Be read a third and final time, signed by the reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Chris and I have Rick. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 77, 2019, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 82-2008, as amended, being a bylaw, being a zoning bylaw of the corporation of the Township of North Huron, for a temporary use as it applies to 86457 Norman Line, concession 14, south part lot 33, concession 13, north part lot 33 and 34, part road allowance, East Wallarosh Ward, Township of North Huron. What? Yeah. So just, there's a bit here more to go. Bylaw number 77, 2019, being a bylaw, So you've got two of them here. So, okay, thank you, Trevor.
You're
Trevor
just-
moves.
You're just adding
Yeah,
Rita as first, second,
Yeah.
and third time.
Yep, Trevor moves. Edith seconds, all in favor, carries.
One of those description and that's the motion, so you're the previous one.
Okay. Bylaw number 78, 2019, being a bylaw to execute a lease agreement with the Avon Maitland District School Board. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin and I have Anita. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 79, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Do I have a mover? Kevin, seconder. Rick, all in favor? Carries. 11.5, being a bylaw to authorize an easement agreement with GJAJ Holdings Limited. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor, seconder. I have Paul, all in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 2019, being a bylaw to authorize an easement agreement with Rutledge Holding Limited. Do I have a mover? I have Chris, seconder. I have Anita, all in favor? Carries. Announcements. Next regular council meeting is on September 3rd. Next Housing Dam Committee meeting is on Wednesday, August the 14th. Next Wyndham BIA general meeting is on Thursday. Next Wyndham BIA board meeting will be held on August 22nd. The first North Huron Museum Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, August 22nd, 2 p.m. at the North Huron Council Chambers. The next Blythe BIA executive meeting will be held on Thursday, August 29th at 6:30, and it looks like we haven't decided where that one's going to be. We have no other business. Closed session. There is no closed session. Confirmatory bylaw. Bylaw number 82, 2019, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to confirm general provisions, actions of the Council of the Township of North Huron. Who's a mover? Rick? Seconder. And Kevin, all in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agreed to, that there be no further business before council. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 9:25 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor. Seconder, I have Rick. All in favor? I have everybody. Thank you, everyone.